What's up? What's up? What's up, loungers? I hope everybody is doing as great as I am today. Listen, guys, we are going to keep this as light as possible on this video, okay? We're not going to talk about anybody being cyber stalked or anybody being harassed or anything like that. Well, for the most part, we're just going to talk about mental health for the most part today, okay? And particularly, I have some questions that I would like to ask an expert who will be in the show today. Shout out to the Godfather himself. D. Durrell will be tapping into the show, and we are going to talk about specific mental health disorders as well as healthy eating. Shout out to Outlaw. I was not able to get a hold of Outlaw, but I did see him around here and about in different chats today. So I'm pretty sure he'll be around sometime today, and hoping that he'll be able to tap in as well and give his expertise as well on healthy eating and the connection between that and mental health disorders, okay? So shout out to everybody that's in the clouds, everybody that's in the chat. I've got Teresa. I definitely appreciate you for being in the building. My Glow, I love you, dear, and I appreciate you for being in the building today. Riz Lyricist, shout out to the Godson. I appreciate you for being in the building today. And Redbone with the new money, one of my favorite loungers in the building. Definitely appreciate you, sis, as well. And everybody that's in the clouds, I appreciate y'all as well. Like I said, we're going to keep this light today. I do have a particular video that I'd like to play with you guys. And I was going to play a Secktah game with it, okay? And just kind of like I was going to go through a contest and like play the video portions of it and then say, well, hey, who do you think this reminds you of, right? And I was going to give you like a list of 3 people and then let y'all vote on it. But I think I'd rather just y'all either speculate on who you think it might, who might fall into this category of people or, and that kind of thing. And we'll just play around with it like that. Now, again, this doesn't, and the reason why I'd rather do it that way is so it doesn't appear that we're targeting anybody, okay? I'll give you an example. There was one of them on here that talks about somebody who puts too much information out, right? And I was actually going to list my name on there, right? I was going to put my name. I was going to put Breaking the Culture, and I was going to put like somebody else. And I couldn't think of anybody else, really. I was trying to think of who. I was thinking of either Shakim or Stargate or somebody like that. But I was also going to be in that voting. So y'all would have been able to vote for me if y'all felt like I just overshare. I think that's what it was, right? So either way, we're going to have a little bit of fun with that. And you guys can kind of figure out, who you think falls into these categories. Some of these are very obvious to, some people that are in our little sector, okay? But some of these you might have to kind of think about. There might be there might be various people that you want to add to these categories or whatever. But we're going to have just a little bit of fun with that today. And then we'll go ahead and get into the mental health conversations, okay? So just to have a little fun and keep the banter light. And again, I really appreciate everybody for being in the building. And Riz says, hey to Redbone. Glow says, hey to Redbone. And you said, hey to Riz. Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you guys go grab some libations or something because we're going to be here for a little while today. We're going to have some fun, okay? And again, I appreciate all of y'all for being here. Let's get started with the show, guys. right, guys. I appreciate all of you for being in the building. Beautiful Bernice, I appreciate you for coming in as well. Everybody's saying hi to her. And let's go ahead and get into this video. Now, guys, I want you to feel free to go ahead and comment in the chat room if you'd like to, okay? Again, this is a judgment-free zone, okay, completely. You are able to speak your speech around here if this is how you feel. Nobody should be offended. Nobody should be calling anybody's jobs or anything like that, okay? Just because, you know, they have this simple opinion about what's going on. What's going on, Godfather? I can go ahead. I'm going to drop the link in just a little bit. But right now, we're actually going to listen to a really fun video, and it's called 20 Types of Stupid People You'll Find on Social Media, okay? Now, all of us, whether we're in the chat, whether we're content creators or so, we all can find somebody in each and every one of these categories on this video. Okay, we might find somebody in our personal life, or we might find somebody here on YouTube. Now, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to put names in the chat? Okay, like put a 1 in the chat if y'all would like to actually name the content creators that you feel like actually fall under the category, or do you just want to put a 2 in the chat if you want to say, if this is a category of somebody in the sector, then we can say sector. Or if it's, you know, somebody we know personally, you can just say personal, right? That way you don't have to worry about throwing anybody's name out here. We don't have to make anybody uncomfortable, you know, or something like that. So put a 1 in the chat if y'all really want to go hard and put people's names in the chat, okay? Put a 2 in the chat if y'all think we should just keep it just like, you know, oh, this is definitely somebody we can identify with in the sector, or we can identify with personally, okay? Now, y'all let me know what y'all want to do, and I'm going to go ahead and start the video.
This video is to examine their typical behaviors. The primary social media platform used for this video is Facebook, but also YouTube at some level, and the points discussed are generally applicable to other minor social platforms as well. Not all fools are on the same level, and for each profile listed, I will assess the level of stupidity and place it on a scale ranging from a lower level of slightly stupid to very stupid, up to the highest level of utterly stupid. If you think this type of video might offend someone's feelings, you're absolutely right. But don't you worry, the majority of people on the web are reasonable individuals who don't fall into these 20 categories.
Okay, so it's kind of like on the fence.
And more noticeable, thus making the web seem infested with foolish individuals, although they actually
shout out to
constitute
Steph
a fairly moderate percentage
for
of
the $5 super chat.
I urge you, whenever you come across a comment on
hold on, let me press pause real quick. Shout out to Stephanie for the $5 super chat. Definitely appreciate that. And yes, I'm kind of leaning towards the 2 as well. I'm thinking we should just say, if this is somebody that it reminds us of in this sector, we should just say sector, okay? If it's somebody you know personally, then say personal, okay? But let's go ahead and get started with this video, because this is actually pretty hilarious, okay? Now let's go ahead and go. Yes, it's too many sensitive Sallys around here for us to be, you know, adding names to this, okay? And I am trying to keep this kind of light. I really don't want to create arguments out of this. So let's go ahead and get started, guys, okay?
Behavior that matches those described in this video. Don't hesitate to share the link to the video with the person in question. Who knows, maybe they'll start questioning themselves, although I honestly doubt it. Now, get comfortable, fasten your seatbelts, and let's begin. 1. The oversharer. We all have a friend who shares every minor detail of their personal life on social media. These individuals lack filters when it comes to posting on social platforms, divulging even inappropriate information that should remain strictly personal. Oblivious to the fact that no one cares if they were late for work this morning, or if their cat has stomach problems, the overshares, in a desperate quest for likes, occasionally receive a few of them out of pity, rather than genuine interest. Oversharers are insecure people in search of attention, but they don't cause much harm to anyone. This one goes into the stupid category. 2. The keyboard warrior.
All right, hold on. So before we go to the keyboard warrior, that was the oversharer. All right. So do we know of anybody in the sector who would fall under the oversharer, or would that be somebody in y'all's personal life? I'm going to add my comment now. All right, so far we're getting sector. Okay. Let's go ahead and go with the keyboard warrior. Okay. Shout out to the Godfather. He said Birdgate. Okay, still ain't say no names though. Still ain't say no names. Both. Okay, all right. All right, let's go ahead now. We got the keyboard warrior. All right, now you got to hear what the keyboard warrior is first before y'all go jumping down and saying Secktah. Okay. You said, tell that's me. I'll walk right into court and say, I'm late. My cat puked on me. All right, guys, let's go ahead and go with the keyboard warrior. You guys ready?
The infamous keyboard warrior is most often a deeply frustrated person in his own personal life who, in order to feel better about himself, spends their time insulting everything and everyone on the internet. Influencers, especially young kids posting videos on TikTok or TV celebrities, are his preferred targets. The keyboard warrior believes to be intellectually superior to these individuals, and from his point of view it's fundamentally unfair that they earn so much money. The keyboard warrior hides behind his screen, often under a fake profile, spewing hateful comments, sparking debates, and generally behaving like cyberbully. If he dislikes a celebrity on Instagram or a YouTube channel, he doesn't simply unfollow like anyone with an IQ higher than that of a parrot would do. Instead, he spends his time commenting and insulting under every photo or video. A real tough guy. Level of stupidity, very stupid. They don't get the maximum rating because these behaviors can stem from a particularly sad life, and there are opportunities for improvement if the keyboard warrior manages to enhance their life outside of the internet. Yes, there is a world beyond their teenage bedroom.
Okay, so do y'all think that that actually sounds like anybody in the sector? Y'all getting messy anyway. It don't matter. Okay, I'm gonna say I don't know anybody personally that does that, but I'm definitely gonna go with Secktah on that for me. But that was so obvious and that actually is a couple of people I think in the sector. Okay, like honestly, definitely think there's a couple people that fall under that keyboard warrior right there. Okay. So y'all let me know what y'all think. Okay. You said he is forgetting the ones who watch then go and make comments about what they watched, right? All aggressively and shit, screaming and shit. You ain't watched it though, but you know what's going on, right? Them kind of people. You remember them, right? All right, let's go on to the next category, guys. Let's go on to
the troll.
The troll
finds joy in annoying other users with provocative comments to test their reactions. Level of stupidity, slightly stupid. Trolling is a foolish behavior, but some individuals deserve to be trolled. For instance, those who leave nasty comments under a post, and I am not talking about constructive criticism, and then, if you dare to respond, they accuse you of being too aggressive with them. They feel free to write whatever nonsense crosses their little minds, but heaven forbid you say something that offends them, poor souls. Well, responding to these comments in a serious manner is pointless since they wouldn't understand anyway. Obviously, ignoring them is always the best choice, as they don't probably deserve your attention. Trolling, however, is second best. In conclusion, trolling isn't a noble act. However, trolling one of the other 19 profiles in this video can, in some cases, be more than justified. 4. The attention seeker.
Okay, so before we get to the attention seeker, we all know we have multiple trolls in the sector, right? There's a couple of trolls who literally meet that category completely. Like, you cannot deny that they want to be able to say whatever they want to. And then when you meet them with the same level of trolling that they're doing, they be in their bag like they can't believe that you're actually they don't want to fight. Like, they don't want to fight or anything. They're just, like, that's literally how it goes. I don't know about y'all, but that's what I'm gonna put Secktah for that. Okay, definitely Secktah. I see y'all got some names in there. The What's Rev Gums. All right. World Star PhDs. Damn binary. That's a damn shame. The victim. Yes. Okay. Hold on, guys. Let's go ahead and get started with the next.
On the lookout for confirmation and the spotlight, going to extremes to capture the attention of others.
This attention seeker.
Exaggerating or fabricating stories. Each of the attention seeker's posts or comments includes something dramatic designed to pique curiosity among readers, and ideally admiration. His posts are intentionally vague or dramatic. If an attention seeker goes to the hospital for a simple blood test, you can be sure he will tag himself in a way that makes their friends and acquaintances worry. After all, he doesn't need to specify that it's a routine test and not a heart transplant, does he? Attention is their drug, and the attention seekers are never satisfied. They are quite pathetic but not harmful, so they're just stupid. 5. The anti-capitalist.
All right, hold on. I'm going to put a name for that one, y'all. I'm sorry. So the attention seeker that I can think of that definitely falls in this category. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is definitely a Secktah thing for me. Okay. Y'all let me know. Now we have the capitalist. Okay. Now this is the anti-capitalist. Okay. You said again, Rev was Gumps. All right. You know who I got on there. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go ahead and continue.
The anti-capitalist on social media is a particularly interesting profile, especially when it comes to YouTubers or various influencers. Neoliberal capitalism is a far from perfect system, and creating content that explains its various problems is completely legitimate. However, the problem arises when one bases his entire online presence on this topic, pure hypocrisy. Engaged in monetizing on the family-run platform, YouTube, with anti-capitalist videos created on their latest model iPhone, obviously made in Russia, or on their Dell computer, presumably manufactured in Venezuela, and using the Windows operating system, developed by the well-known Cuban programmer Bill Gates. These influencers spread their ideas through Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, social media created by small Vietnamese companies like Meta or X, and located on the outskirts of Hanoi, and owned by financially disadvantaged individuals like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg. The funny thing is that the anti-capitalist YouTuber never refuses the paycheck for views or other earnings of various types obtained at the end of the month thanks to these social media platforms, which are the most clear representation of capitalism. And don't forget to buy their latest online course or their latest book titled Money is Evil, exclusively available for sale on Amazon, which all of a sudden, it's no longer a company that exploits its workers, a platform created by the well-known North Korean philosopher Jeff Bezos. Remember also to subscribe to their Patreon and support their project by giving them the much-hated money. After all, they are so altruistic that they even help you get rid of it. In short, these YouTubers play the role of paladins of justice against capitalism, until it's time to get paid, fundamentally financing and aiding these big multinational corporations to expand. Their followers are not that different since they use the same technologies and the same social media to follow them. In the end, it's always nice to see people who criticize the very system they benefit from on a daily basis. Level of stupidity, very stupid.
Okay, so I can think of a couple of people like that. Not so much in this sector though, like in other sectors, yeah, but not in this sector. I don't know if y'all want to go with this sector. I'm just going to say other sector for that one. But I don't really know of anybody. Yeah, I don't know anybody in this sector that I can say it falls under that full category with that. I can't think of anybody like that. Yeah, yeah, more in the conscious community. Also, maybe the manosphere. There's a couple of guys like that. There's a few things like that, but not over here. Not over here in our sector. All right, let's go ahead and keep going.
As mentioned previously, capitalism is far from being a perfect system, and it's fine to create content highlighting its various flaws. But the inconsistency of constantly complaining about it and then enjoying all the benefits derived from using these major platforms is a contradiction. 6. The grammar Nazi. The sixth profile on the list is that of the grammar Nazi. The grammar Nazi reaches the climax when he managed to identify a grammatical error within any content. It doesn't matter if he is reading an article containing the magical formula to live up to 150 years. For the grammar Nazi, all that counts is that if the creator of the article made a simple mistake, he absolutely must point it out to them. Oh, what a satisfaction. Grammar Nazis are fundamentally frustrated individuals who seek these small victories to compensate for their failures in the real world. In fact, their presumed perfectionism often serves as an obstacle when it comes to achieving tangible results in life. If you are a content creator on YouTube, One way to exploit a grammar Nazi is to deliberately insert some grammatical errors into your videos, inducing the grammar Nazi to comment, in order to feel good about himself. By doing so, the video will receive many more comments than usual, increasing the video's engagement and sending a positive signal to the YouTube's algorithm, which in turn will promote the video and increase its views and your revenue. Don't be afraid to seem foolish. Most of the views will come from intelligent people who won't pay particular attention to all of this, as they will be focused on understanding the key message of the video. However, often the more intelligent people will be quiet and generally tend to comment less. But grammar Nazis instead won't hesitate to show off all his knowledge in the comments, and you can use their idiocy to your advantage. Everyone wins. The grammar Nazis will feel better about themselves, and you will increase the number of views and consequently your earnings. Level of stupidity of the grammar Nazi. Stupid. They are indeed very annoying but easily manipulable, and they can be useful for the reasons explained. 7.
Okay, yeah, so I definitely think that is Secktah for sure. Right in our sector, we have a few of them. I also know personal people like that. I know, well, one of my club sisters, shout out to my baby. One of my club sisters, she will definitely do shit like that, right? So on Facebook, if you say something and you got it spelled wrong, she will be one of them bitches that's like, she'll go and put the right spelling on there, like in front of everybody. She don't give a fuck. She do not care at all. Shout out to my boo. You said they don't know the content, but will spot the mistake. Exactly. Like they come for the mistake, but just don't know anything else. So they got the mistake down packed though. Or they don't even watch your show, right? They don't even watch your show, but they know every mistake you make. Though. How about that? They got that down packed. You said, okay, it is fun to point out AAS's spelling errors. Her abdominal snowman a few years ago had me cry. He said, facts, Clark, facts, Clark. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and finish up this.
The purist. This is a very common figure on social media in pages specialized in a specific topic or discipline. This person considers himself an expert and criticizes anyone who doesn't share his views, approaching the discipline in a non-traditional way. For instance, if you enthusiastically share a photo of a dish you've cooked, you might receive a comment from the purist that sounds something like this: "That's not the traditional recipe. You should use different ingredients." More than just foolish, the purist is an
Or should we say it like, "That's not the traditional recipe"? All right, let's go ahead and keep going.
Failing to understand that no one is born a master and not everyone approaches a new hobby or
That's
discipline with
not
the ambition of becoming one. The advice for the purists is to step out of their shell and try new disciplines from time to time, experiencing how it feels to be criticized without reason. I categorize them under slightly stupid. 8. The obsessive selfist.
Okay, so do y'all find that in the sector or not? I do find that first one, that one in the sector for sure. That's in the sector. Okay, just say it. Just say it. Okay, just say it. What's up, Pixie? What's up, Pixie? Okay. All right, let's go ahead. You said sector man of God teaches the head therapist. Right. Gotcha, girl. Let's go ahead. Let's keep going. Definitely Secktah. Okay. Let's
go. The obsessive selfist is brimming with selfies taken from various positions, angles, and poses.
Godson, stop laughing at me.
Without any meaningful content. It doesn't matter whether they're in the bathroom or the kitchen. Their sole goal is to get more likes. Selfie in the bathroom. Selfie in front of a monument. Group selfie with everyone I know. To be clear, it's nice to take and share a few photos on social media, but if you're doing it every day at all hours, you probably need to find a hobby outside of social media. If you're one of these obsessive selfists, listen up. You're probably not as good looking as you may think, even though your mom has always told you that you're handsome or beautiful, and the likes you receive on Facebook or Instagram are most likely out of kindness or pity. Slow down a bit.
Yikes.
There's no need to post new photos every 2 minutes. Level of stupidity, slightly stupid, maybe a bit narcissistic, but this profile doesn't hurt anyone except themselves.
We are not diagnosing anybody on this show, okay? We are not using any terms in the DSM-5 without the proper diagnosis, okay? We'll be talking about that kind of stuff later on, okay? But anyway, I definitely think that one I can find one or two people in the sector that fall under that selfish kind of behavior. Okay. You said sector, the PhDs won this one. Rev, what's again? All right. You said like when Jag was doing her show from the bath. Yes, that like shit like that, right? Yes, honey. She is most definitely one of them selfish there. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going, y'all.
9. The old friend. Who hasn't received an out-of-the-blue private message from a friend they haven't had any contact with for 10 or even 20 years? I know that some of you are probably smiling right now because you already know what I'm about to say. The conversation generally goes like this.
Hey, my friend, it's been ages. How are you?
Hi, everything's fine, and you?
I'm doing great. By the way, are you still going to the gym?
Yes, why?
Look, I have an innovative product to
You
propose
ain't
to
lying.
you, created by a leading company in this sector, which is looking for collaborators all over the country, smart people like you. I've earned $20,000 per month with them in no time.
For transparency, this video is not sponsored by Herbalife. Level of stupidity, slightly stupid. Here too, the initiative can be appreciated, but it's still quite annoying to receive such approaches.
So usually if I get a message like that, it's one of my friends on Facebook, and usually their page has been hacked. Like I actually would know because I would be able to call them and be like, yo, are you sending me some dumb life-changing fucking deal? Like, what the fuck is going on? That's usually what I get out of that, right? So I don't know, right? But the whole life-changing deal shit really caught the fuck out of me. Word. All right, listen, guys. All right, so I definitely got to put that one with, I'll say Secktah and personal. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and keep going. We about halfway
10.
through.
The gullible one. This person shares fake news without verifying the source or the truthfulness of the information.
Yikes. Okay, let's go.
Gullible one has never learned to distinguish a genuine news story from a fake one, believing everything they are told or everything they want to believe is true. If tomorrow their favorite influencer shares an article stating that Hitler has been artificially brought back to life by the German special forces to attempt to invade Russia again, they would believe it without hesitation. What's funny is that this type of person often thinks to be the smart one of the bunch, the clever one, the one nobody can fool. When in reality he is the one living in his own little world, a world made of cognitive biases and dissonance. As a result, most of these people have never managed to stand out in their own life when it came to actually achieving something real, something tangible. Obviously, they will never admit this, and they will never take responsibilities for the failures. They would rather look someone else to blame, someone like George Soros or Bill Gates, for example. Level of stupidity, extremely stupid. Utterly irredeemable. To learn more, I recommend taking a look at videos on the Dunning-Kruger effect, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's theory, and
all right, make it make sense. I definitely think that is definitely a sector move right there. Okay, a sector move. Okay, I'm just letting you know that's what I think. Okay, y'all let me know what y'all think. Okay, but we know what Speak think. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and keep it moving. Shout out to everybody in Secktah out this space. Everybody hit that like button. You got like 30 people in the clouds. Make sure y'all hit the like button for me. I appreciate y'all for being here. We having just a little fun here, y'all.
Carlo Sepola's Laws of Stupidity, all of which you can find on this channel. I've included the links to the 3 videos below in the description. 11. The politically correct and the politically incorrect. It seemed politically correct to put them both on the same level. Although opposites, I place these 2 categories at the same level of stupidity, a bit like I would do with fascists and communists. To be clear, I'm talking about people at extreme levels of political correctness or incorrectness, not about someone who believes in being politically correct but with intelligence and common sense. On one side, we have the politically correct, constantly searching for reasons to accuse anyone of being sexist, feminist, racist, homophobic, etc., even when the other person might not even know what these words mean. The politically correct watches my videos, making sure there's a perfect balance of female and male figures in the drawings, ensuring a fair representation of people of color, gay couples, as well as heterosexual ones. For instance, if the percentage of people of color is too low according to their parameters, I would clearly be considered racist, but beware, if I include too many, the anti-politically correct crowd comes accusing me of being paid by the Democrats and the powerful forces, having devised a diabolical pro-immigration plan. The politically incorrect often hold opposing ideas to those of the politically correct, but they're equally bothersome. If you belong to these categories, listen up. With a few exceptions, none of you are being discriminated against because you're women or men, black, yellow, or white, heterosexual or gay. Most likely, you're being discriminated against because due to your lack of common sense, you're simply too foolish. Level of stupidity, very stupid. 12, the drama queen.
We'll get to that in a second. Well, this is most definitely Secktah related. Okay. Ciao. I mean, no. Oh shit! Hold on. I just got to the wrong video. Sorry, guys. Hold on one second.
Reality is that this is not always the case.
I just fast forwarded to the wrong video. Okay. All right, we here now.
12.
All right, so that is definitely Secktah, and I'm definitely gonna put a name on that. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so we got Secktah as mess, okay, and you know all that. All right, yeah. I appreciate that. Okay, now, ooh, it is raining like a motherfucker outside, y'all. Ooh, Jesus. You said child Secktah teachers, massage therapists, PhDs. Don't attack a protected class or else I have actionable claims, right? Actionable claims, okay? That's all we doing out this bitch, okay? We do actionable claims. You said true that right there. Hey, Eyes, I appreciate you. You said, hey, T Pre, how the baby T Diddy? Doing well, doing very well. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. You said level of stupidity. Meter is hilarious, right? And I got the Secktah ass mess. Okay, just saying. All right, let's go ahead and keep going. We're gonna go ahead and keep going. Let's go ahead and keep going. You said you may be in a class, but it's not protected. All right. You said it was raining here earlier. Yeah, it's raining like cats and dogs right now. All right, let's go ahead and keep going, y'all.
The drama queen.
It just started coming out of nowhere.
Or king, if we want to be politically correct. I was saying the drama queen manages to create a big fuss over every trivial matter and turns each of their small victories into a spectacular achievement. Self-proclaimed real tough guy, they love posting on social media quotes like, they threw me in with the wolves, and I came out leading the pack, making it seem like some grand accomplishment, when in reality, they simply went to pick up their child from daycare and managed to bring them home in one piece. Level of stupidity, stupid. Doesn't deserve further comments or attention.
Okay, so we definitely got several drama queens here in the Secktah and kings/queens in the Secktah. So I'm definitely going to make that a Secktah one right there. Let me know what y'all think. And we're going to go ahead and go on with the next one.
13. The functional illiterate. From Wikipedia, the term quantitative illiteracy or functional illiteracy refers to the inability to effectively use reading, writing, and arithmetic skills in everyday life situations. This essentially translates to the inability to comprehend, evaluate, and utilize information present in contemporary society. Since 1984, UNESCO has defined functional illiteracy as the condition of a person who is incapable of understanding, evaluating, using, and engaging with written texts to actively participate in society, achieve their goals, and develop their own knowledge and potential. According to the latest figures, around 18% of Americans are functionally illiterate. Let me give you a practical example to better understand this type of person. If I make a video where I state that lemon iced tea is incredibly delicious, the functionally illiterate individual would probably leave a comment insinuating that I said peach iced tea isn't good, which I actually never said. However, they interpreted it that way when I showed.
They would say, peach iced tea is not on the menu. Make it make sense.
Appreciation.
That's what they would say.
Lemon iced tea. Sometimes in my videos,
this is the functional illiterate.
Or fairly obvious premises. That's because I'm already certain that some things I say will be misinterpreted by someone. And when this happens, the first thing I wonder is whether I expressed myself poorly, which might very well be the case. But then, when I see that for every person who misunderstood, there are 50 others who understood exactly what I meant, I can breathe a sigh of relief.
Glow is killing me.
Utterly stupid. It It's no coincidence that it's on the same level as the gullible one. Often, these two profiles combine. Unfortunately, besides being harmful to themselves, this type of person can also be harmful to others. Not necessarily because they leave a negative comment under a post of a video, that's completely irrelevant, but when it comes to making decisions or important choices that could have an impact on others' lives. 14. The master of rhetoric. The master
Sorry, that is most definitely somebody in the sector. Okay, the last one we just listened
of
to.
rhetoric thrives on cliched phrases, predictable thoughts, and is completely disconnected from what the real world is. A typical characteristic of the master of rhetoric is preaching good but not actually doing anything concrete himself. He believes to be morally superior to others, but at the core, he is often a slimy and hypocritical individual. Statements like, "Football players earn millions while there are people who can't make ends meet," are typical of the master of rhetoric, and he generally always receives a lot of likes on social media because rhetoric always wins on social media. People are not really smart, unfortunately. If you discuss about the war with the master of rhetoric, he will tell you something like, "Stop the war. They need to make peace. They should find a diplomatic and peaceful solution." Wow, you are really smart. An absolute genius. I am sure they hadn't thought of that, and they'd rather shoot at each other because they have no better ways to pass their time. Besides
I
preaching
definitely
good,
got
however,
somebody
the
in
master
mind
of
in the
rhetoric
sector.
never does anything practical, tangible to help others. To sum up, hypocrisy and cowardice combined with a good dose of ignorance. Lots of words, zero actions. Level of stupidity, extremely stupid. 15. The serious one.
Anybody got any? Well, I see what y'all put in sector of the mid. Awesome. Sector, go in peace. Yes, 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 yes. Go in peace. And let me not say anything else. Let me not say anything else. Let me just go ahead and play the video.
The serious one is someone who takes everything he reads or hears on the internet literally. He can't understand
Hey,
when someone is
beautiful.
joking, even when it's blatantly obvious. His relationship with irony and sarcasm is as utopian as mine with Scarlett Johansson. This approach makes him a favorite target for trolls who enjoy teasing them to see how far they can go before the serious one realizes that their comments are not serious. Level of stupidity, stupid. Unfortunately, interacting with a person without a minimum sense of humor is difficult, and even trying to explain can often be futile. 16. The self-insulter. This is one of my favorite profiles, and when it comes to stupidity, he is at the top of the food chain. In essence, the self-insulter, which fortunately is a rare profile, is the one who unknowingly leaves self-insulting comments. Let me give you an example. If tomorrow I publish on this channel a video titled 5 Indicators of a Particularly Intelligent Person, the self-insulter will leave a comment like, 6 intelligent people don't watch this video, a comment that opens the doors to 2 possible scenarios, both of which leave them cornered. The first option is that he watched the entire video, and therefore, according to his comment, he is not an intelligent person, and the second option is that he didn't watch the video and simply left a comment, which makes him even more foolish, both for having commented on something without even watching it, and for confirming that he has so much time to waste by leaving such comments just for the sake of it, without even benefiting from the content. Now try to imagine what a sad life someone like that might have. As mentioned, level of stupidity, extremely stupid. 17. The anti-advertiser. The anti-advertiser is
That was
someone
exactly
who,
my
if a
thoughts.
15-minute video YouTuber includes 1 minute of advertising.
I'm
rather than
sorry,
just skipping it.
Photon. You got to take that one, bro. I know he be trolling, but you got to take that one, bro, because you definitely be doing it. You the main person that be like, I don't even watch your show, but you know everything going on in whatever the show is that you talking about you don't watch. But shout out to the king of this sector, Photon, man. That nigga doing his thing. You said, I feel very attacked, right? Sector, man of God. Okay. All right, let's
Continuing
go.
with the
Let's
video
go.
like a normal person would, he wastes even more time by leaving a negative comment complaining about the fact that the video contained a sponsored advertisement.
Hey
When I
Joe.
read
Hey
comments
Joe.
like
What's up,
these, I
Josephine?
sometimes
400 in the
wonder if these
chat.
people work for free, for the glory, or more likely, if they don't work at all, not understanding that a sponsor is often crucial for a channel to keep going. And if you don't like it, you don't need a Harvard degree to drag your finger on the screen and skip the advertisement, but this concept seems too difficult to grasp for the anti-advertiser. Level of stupidity, very stupid. 18. The religious and the political. Let me specify something right away. I have nothing against those who believe in God, just as I have nothing against those who are non-believers. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and no one should pressure others to think like them at all costs. That being said, among believers in particular, there are some extreme cases where faith is so deeply rooted that any topic discussed on the web becomes an excuse to bring up God, Jesus, the apostles, etc. Sometimes I post videos that have nothing to do with religion, and someone's comment randomly throws in God. The same goes for die-hard politicians, whose posts are almost always politically oriented even when politics have nothing to do with the subject. Even on this channel, sometimes it seems like an ongoing feud between pro-Trump Republicans and pro-Biden Democrats, even under content that really has nothing to do with politics. I could be talking about lasagna, and still, there would be comments about Trump or Biden, crazy stuff. If you're one of these people, I'm sorry, but you're also foolish. This category also falls under the very stupid section. 19, the monothematic.
I can think of two people in the sector that do that. Definitely two.
Monothematic is someone who has a hobby, a deep passion, or even a simple interest, and on social media platforms like Facebook, all he does is post photos or articles about that single topic relentlessly. Whether it's football, politics, or kittens, the monothematic's feed is plastered with posts about it and nothing else. It's an obsession, and as long as the posts are positive, it might be tolerable. However, there's nothing worse than, for example, the political monothematic who posts 10 times a day praising his favorite politician and discrediting everything said by the rival party, not realizing that 99% of his contacts couldn't care less. This lands them in the category of fools. 20, Mr. Laughter. And here we are with the last profile, the dumbest of them all. Mr. Laughter, the pinnacle of idiocy on the internet. Some of you are surely already aware of the type of person I'm referring to. Those who put the laughing emoji under every piece of news related to wars, pandemics, sinking migrant boats, etc., etc. The question is simple: what on earth do you find so funny? The most annoying thing is not the mental distress of these losers, but their cowardice. Mr. Laughter encompasses the characteristics of almost all the profiles we've seen in this video. He possesses the bullying of a keyboard warrior, the IQ of the gullible one or the functional illiterate, and the master of rhetoric cowardice. Laughing at others' misfortunes, and I'm not talking about making fun of an opposing team for losing a soccer match, but serious matters, is a behavior fit for complete imbeciles. Thankfully, the emoji in question doesn't exist on YouTube. Now, by process of elimination, I know you're probably expecting Mr. Laughter to fall into the category of the extremely stupid, but no, they are so superior to all the other categories I've analyzed today that they deserve their own section, which we'll call the Kings of Stupid. And with that, we're done. Now tell me, which of these 20 profiles infuriates you the most, and which one do you not find as annoying? I understand.
All right. So that is the end of that. I wanted to share that with the sector, and y'all can probably understand why I didn't want to let everybody vote on names and stuff like that, because I really didn't want to, single nobody out, because honestly, a lot of us fall under many of those categories. Okay. Let's be honest, right? We know several people in this sector that we can definitely name a name, right? On at least 18. I can name a name on at least one name on at least 18 of 20 of those profiles. Now there was, 19 of 20. Yeah. There was one that didn't really fit in with the sector. But the rest of them most definitely fit in with the sector. But shout out to y'all for having fun and being a part of that and everything, and just enjoying yourselves too, because that was really, really funny. And yes, I think it's funny how you put Stargate, and she definitely was a part of that. And that was fun, guys. You said gang because calling black folks nigga is very hilarious to them. Okay, right. All right, guys. Now, listen, I'm going to go ahead and play a little timer for us so we can get Darrell on the panel. And we're going to go ahead. And if Outlaw is out there, he can definitely hit the panel as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started with the show. Let Darrell and I kind of talk a little bit. And then I'm also going to open up the panel if anybody has any questions or wants to come on the panel as well. And then we'll go ahead and get right into it, guys. Okay. Go ahead and hit the like button, guys, and we are going to get right to this hot topic in just a few moments. All right. Hey, what's up, Darrell?
Hey there, how you doing, Queen?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great, great, great.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I just wanted to have a conversation today in regards to. I tried to do it on Thursday actually, but because LV was going live with and was supposed to have the roast contest, is why I
Yeah,
postponed it till today, right? But since we didn't have the roast contest, we could have really did this on Thursday. But it's cool. It is what it is. But
right,
either
right.
way, go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience because everybody that watches my show is not really from the sector. So they, some people might not know who you are. And I would like people to know who you are. And, before we get into this conversation, to kind of understand why I may have asked you to, for your expertise on these things. So
Okay. Well, for those that don't know me, my name is I go by D. Durrell. Um, I am a professional therapist. Um, I have I'm actually licensed, been licensed for over 16 years, have worked in mental health. I am in the Umar sector. I'm also in some other black sectors of YouTube, in the manosphere and in the co-ed spaces that are adjacent to the manosphere. Um, I have owned and operated my private practice and facilities for well over 14 to 15 years. Also, I do specialize in adult mental health. Although I have worked with children, um, I cover an array of different areas, particularly community orientated areas, and also within hospital settings and educational settings. Um, I deal a lot with families, marital issues, relationship issues as it relates to mental health. The majority of my clients suffer from issues of psychosis, depression, anxiety, stress related issues, and also behavioral issues. So I plan to, offer my expertise in a variety of different issues. That's speaking on mental health, particularly when it comes to the Black community or things within our community that I basically took it upon myself to make sure that I can um, facilitate therapy that can be unique for our community because we have a unique set of circumstances and a unique set of issues that may not be accurately interpreted by other groups of people who provide that service. Not to say that they would not be effective, but I do think as a Black male therapist, um, which we make up less than 4% of therapists throughout the country. As a whole, as Black therapists make up less than 11%. So there's definitely a need for people in our community to be in this form of healing art in order to help our people function through all the things that that we have to deal with that are somewhat unique to other groups of people.
okay, thank you very, very much, Dee. You really put that well. And I will say that I hold your expertise to a very high regard with personally
Thank you.
seeing mental illness within my family. I've been able to take a lot of advice from, or at least not so much advice, but just hear some of the things that you have talked about on your channel. If you'd like to go ahead and share that channel, and if one of the moderators can put a link to his your coach D Durrell, not the coach D Durrell, but the mental
Leader
health
Life Solutions.
life solutions
Yes.
channel. If you
Yes.
can
I'm
put a
sorry.
link to his life solutions channel in there, that way everybody can kind of go over there and subscribe because he has some really great information in regards to Black mental health. Okay. And I have listened to probably every single one of those videos a few times over. And
Oh
I have
wow.
actually taken on some of those things, and I've seen a lot of those things work. I've actually even listened to myself and paid more attention to my own mental health just by being more self-aware from some of those videos. So shout out to Darrell for that because he's definitely on his game in regards to Black mental health. Now, and that, that's definitely my opinion of that. Now, what I'd like to kind of talk about is some of the things that you do have expertise in, such as clinical depression, schizophrenia, and things like that. Um,
Okay.
I would really like to hear about those things because I often have found, even in this journey with my family member, I have found that going to one clinician might not be enough. Like, you might have to go and get a second or a third opinion about things, right? Because it might not be what you think it is, if they actually continue to do testing on the person or see what that is. If you can talk about that a little bit more.
Right.
Um,
Sure. Sure. And so, in talking about that, I would like everybody to understand that when you are seeking any type of mental health services, that psychoeducation is very important based on their level of training, their level of expertise, and the level of experience that they have working in particular areas. Just because a person is licensed with a any type, whether they're a psychologist, a counselor, or social worker, doesn't necessarily mean that they may be a good fit for the issues that you may have. Um, there are certain therapists that I know that only work with certain type of issues, and they are not well versed in other type of issues. There are some that are across the board good with everything, depending on the experience or the. It's all about the setting that they're working kind of dictates um, what type of experience they have in treating or their effectiveness in treating certain type of disorders. Case in point, you just talked about something that I deal with on a daily basis as it involves working in conjunction with other mental health professions. Um, One of the key things is that many of my clients, particularly those that have psychosis, that have severe anxiety, depression, they have a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a medical specialty that involves diagnosing, evaluating, and prescribing medication. In psychiatry, it does not require the ability of a psychiatrist to facilitate psychotherapy. 99% of psychiatrists do not provide therapy. There are very few psychiatrists who actually undergo education and training to facilitate therapy. There are a lot of clients who, when they go to a psychiatrist, they have this due to miseducation on television. They think that psychiatrists actually provide therapy, and for the most part, they don't. And so, if you are seeking a psychiatrist, there is a high probability that that psychiatrist may refer you out either to a clinic or to a private practice or some other mental health professional to seek to seek psychotherapy. Most will not actually facilitate that, or they may have another mental health professional that may work in their clinic or their practice that
right.
works along with them. So you will in some instances have to seek a another professional. Not and even within that, I'm gonna give you an example of how it would benefit you to have multiple therapists. And I encourage it based on the level of care and the severity of the issues that you're dealing with. So, a prime example of that would be a situation in which you may have a severe mental health issue. Let's say that you are bipolar and it's without psychotic features, and you have an inability to function in home, school, or within your family. You found yourself being hospitalized several times. You are married and you have difficulty uh, with raising your children, or maintaining your marriage. In that type of situation, I would definitely refer you out to seek a another therapist who is competent in treating the family issues or the marital issues, and so forth. If particularly if within the basis of just merely treating the bipolar symptoms and the psychosocial stressors that you are having an inability to cope with, it would be easier for you to deal with that separate issue as opposed to your therapist maybe in some situations trying to treat that along with the other issues at the same time. It all depends on
Gotcha.
the
That
level
makes
of
sense.
function.
That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
And
Yeah.
and and also within that itself, there are situations in which a person will have a mental health issue. As far as the diagnoses, they have multiple diagnoses. You can have bipolar disorder along with an anxiety disorder,
Hmm.
along with also in combination to a personality disorder
Hmm.
and a substance abuse disorder. So, particularly within a substance abuse disorder, you may want to seek another therapist to merely deal with those substance abuse issues that you may have. Now, my position to me, in most situations, I don't encourage anyone to get more than two therapists. I think having three different therapists to treat three different things may be a bit much. There are a pretty healthy percentage of master's level therapists or psychologists who may also be licensed in other different specialty areas. There are licensed therapists or social workers who may also be licensed as an LMFT, and they also may be licensed as a chemical dependency counselor or therapist. So in some of those situations, if those things do persist when you're having multiple life domains in which you are unable to function, it may be appropriate for you to seek someone who has the proper licensure to fit your needs. So they may be an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, or an LCSW that may be licensed as a substance abuse counselor or as an LMFT, or may have all three. And within that, that may be suitable for you in that instance. And
And the
I
L.
do. Oh, go
I'm
ahead. I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And it may be better for you in that instance to choose someone that fits that can cover those things instead of getting a third therapist, because that could be a bit what I encounter with people who have severe mental illness, or even those who are functioning. It could be a bit stressful in itself to have multiple therapists and going through building rapport, going through the therapeutic process,
Yeah.
and telling your story over and over. Even though it can be therapeutic, the repetitiveness of it can also be triggering. It also can be tiring, and it also can maybe discourage clients from wanting to continue therapy long term.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just a couple of quick questions. I know what the LPS is what now? That's a license. Just they can just
Oh,
practice, right?
yeah, an
License,
LPC it stands for
LPC.
licensed professional counselor. It requires a minimum of a master's degree, along with 3 hours plus in clinical training, passing a state board test, and within meeting those requirements, you can apply for licensure and receive your license as a counselor. The other one is an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker, which we're basically um, from a skill level, we're basically about the same. The difference is that within social work in itself has different levels of licensure, and it focuses more on the aftercare of the client outside of the therapeutic environment of you doing one-on-one, or being involved in one-on-one therapy. So the
Hmm.
social work in itself, particularly, um, functions highly well within government agencies and hospitals because they can provide therapy, but they also can help you gain access and education and other domains of your life that may be hindered by your mental illness. So they could be prone to refer you to educational programs,
Right.
seeking testing, seeking medical attention,
Hmm.
um, recreational things, um, any type of government benefits or resources that you may not be aware of. They have the training and understanding to provide that to a client with those whatever those specific needs are.
Thank you. I really appreciated you clarifying that because I think it's really important when you're getting into therapy, right? When you're first learning about, finding a therapist and stuff, to kind of know exactly which ones are what, right? And what they actually do, because you might need something long term like that, right? You might need
Correct.
something that would require you to have help with, like housing or help with anything like food or anything, just because
Yes.
you may have a real illness, right? And that is what that type of therapist is there for. So shout out to you, Darrell, for really explaining that. I do have one other question
Yes.
before we go on. Now, does insurance generally cover more than one therapist, or do you
Yes.
have
It
to kind
does.
of pay it? Okay, that's good to know.
Now, this is the issue with that. Now, the insurance, depending on um, let me break it up into um, the different ways in which that can be done. Because there's a difference between private care, uh, government sponsored care, which is basically Medicare, Medicaid.
Hmm.
Then there's also um, care that is done via your job, which is called an employment assistance program. Some
Hmm.
people don't realize that you can actually get therapy for free
There
first
you
before
go.
you begin paying for it yourself through an employment assistance program.
Yeah.
Before it even goes to your insurance. And then also there are, if you are involved in any type of government, let's say you are, like I have contracts, particularly with certain government agencies, whether it's the Department of Family Services, whether it is some other criminal justice agency. There's several government agencies, whether it's at the state level or the county level, or even within the school level, or let's say the educational level, in which I have a contract in which that particular entity pays for the therapy that you're getting. Now, usually in those situations, um, depending on the agency itself, they will give you a finite amount of services. They may tell you, we want you to see certain client for 10 sessions, 8 sessions, particularly when we're talking about um, employment program, the assistance programs. They usually authorize between 3 to 6, no more than 6, before you have to be reauthorized, or they may tell you you have to utilize your insurance. When it comes to Medicaid or Medicare, if you are a Medicaid recipient, I know it's different in different states, but in the state of Texas, they will give you up to 32 sessions for that year. And once you complete those 32 sessions with whatever Medicaid program that you're in, you have to, if you need more than that, we have to authorize, get a pre-authorization for more sessions. There are certain insurances, exceptions to that, such as with the foster care adoption um, uh, subdivision of that, where they have unlimited sessions because of the unique care that they're in. They're
Hmm.
in foster care, they're in adoption, so they have, the needs are a little different. So they allow them to have unlimited amounts of services that they can be provided. Um, in other states, it may be a little different. They may give you so many sessions you have to reapply for it, and then some they may be unlimited. amounts of um, of sessions they may give you. I do know in my dealings with the Veterans Affair that they have unlimited amounts of sessions, because that's kind of a separate entity that's dealing with the military. And within the military, there's a set type of thing. There's a set of that the funding is different, and within the military, there's a separate. Those are unique and separate issues that may not be as prevalent in other different areas. So they kind of cover a different set of issues with people who have military issues, people who have PTSD due to involvement in the war, in different wars, and doing tours and things like that. So that they kind of handle things a little different, um, based on the fact that they have provided service for the country in that area. When we're dealing with like Medicare, which is a federal program, Medicare also provides unlimited services, based on medical necessity, in which you can pretty much see a therapist weekly, or even some weeks if you need to see them twice a week, if it needs to be that intense. They do allow pretty much unlimited amounts of services. So so the type of benefits that you have in some ways can dictate how the services are being delivered and how frequent those services will be delivered towards you to you.
Okay, that is a
Now,
really great.
if you need me to, like, if there's a question about any of those, if you need me to, because like I know that's a lot of
Mhm.
uh, different areas and ways of as far as insurances, because the thing about it, they're all different. Like Medicare, Medicaid, EAP, private insurance. They all, I know it's a lot of different ways, but they all have their own positives and negatives as far as how the services are delivered and how you're being authorized to receive those services.
Okay. Yeah, that you actually broke that down pretty well. I'm
Okay.
pretty familiar with insurance. And I think that if somebody had a private insurance, like any of them, right?
Right.
I think that they would know how to get in a hold of their insurance company and kind of break down the rest of that. As far as
Right.
the government insurances, like the TRICARES, the for military, right? And then you've
Mm-hmm.
got your Medicaid, for which is state funded insurance, and then you've got your Medicare, which is government funded for the elderly and some disabled people, right? So,
Correct.
and that also is, so they all have their own things. Medicare itself is very, very tricky, and I don't even want to get into that bull crap. So if y'all have those questions, y'all will definitely need to contact a social worker in regards to Medicaid or Medicare. Or you can contact your employer if you have insurance there. Or you can purchase your own private insurance through various companies like Blue Cross. I'm not doing any promotions for any of them though. I'm just letting you know, like, there's various insurance companies out here that you can contact. Okay. Now, did you have any other things you wanted to say in regards to that, or because I have
Um,
some more things?
Pretty much. What I would say is that in many instances, particularly those who may be pondering whether or not they would like to receive mental health services, I would definitely encourage you, if you are thinking about it or you are pondering, because usually the average client that comes to my office or that wants therapy, they usually take 2 to 3 months, and some more, but on average. Most people just don't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I need therapy." They usually experience things for a certain period of time, and when it becomes unbearable, they may think about it for like a month or two before they decide that they
Mm-hmm.
need it. So, my position is, the more information that you have um, about what type of professional you need and how your insurance would cover it, will make the whole process easier for you, because um, calling various therapists, calling insurances, that in itself can be stressful,
Right.
and we don't want to, in the process of you seeking help, being feeling stressful in that process. We want to try to alleviate that or minimize that as much as possible.
Right.
So
So
I would encourage education on that if you are thinking about that somewhere down the line, so you can be prepared.
okay. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get a couple of comments out of the comment section because there's a few questions, and also I wanted to say hello to a few people. I just didn't want to interrupt D. Darrell. You said, "Are there any in confidentiality issues with employee assistance?"
Is there any
Steph Collins.
confidentiality process? Okay,
Yes.
so basically, within the EAP process, most EAP programs are linked to your private insurance. Okay. Um, as far as the only issue I may see as far as with confidentiality, usually the EAP poses doesn't pose a confidentiality issue because pretty much you still are I'm still bound by my code of ethics um regardless of how or what payer source is being used. The only issue of that I would see that may happen is if there are issues on the job in which the company itself, whether a manager or boss, in many ways, in some ways, may make it mandatory based on your behavior or lack of production or whatever issues that are going on the job. They may refer you to to have therapy in order to keep your job. So in that situation, as far as confidentiality, um, I have to monitor and pretty much, um, I would say, manage what information is given and what is not necessarily let's say not necessarily crossing the boundaries of the client's um, in service experience with me. So there are many instances in which the manager or boss or whoever wants that worker to seek services, they may call after the the session or later in the week to confirm that that person is seeing therapy, and they also may ask, is there any what the progress is. So within that situation, as far as keeping within the boundaries of confidentiality, my job is to merely explain to them not necessarily specifically what is occurring in therapy, but to kind of highlight the fact that they are participating. This is the level of participation or non-participation, and also what the level of progress is or lack thereof. But as far as the specifics of what that client is talking about, whether it's about the manager himself or the boss or other coworkers, I'm bound not to necessarily talk about those things, but
Mhm.
to basically give a summary that doesn't necessarily go into the specifics
Okay. So like you
as
don't
far as what is
indulge,
done in there.
right?
Yeah,
So you wouldn't divulge everything, but you might give them like a basic summary of what you have come to and what's going on,
it, yes,
and that may be and what may be affecting their mental health enough, or to be them dealing with this on the job and why they may be lacking performance or whatever, right? I can understand
exactly.
exactly what you're saying. Okay, that
Yes,
makes
and
sense.
so yeah, so those that is basically, and also with there are a couple of government agencies that they do, well, based on the fact that um they are providing a certain service for the client per se. There are documents and certain guidelines that they have where they are privy to the documentation, but there's certain levels of rules for government agencies in which they are pretty much those particular agencies are built to deal with certain situations in a fashion in which they are allowed to have access to certain paperwork and so on. But still,
Gotcha.
even with that, there's still some things that um, I would not be able to talk to them about in regards to what the client may specifically say. I deal with this a lot in the criminal justice system because
Okay.
there are a lot of guys that they basically admit certain things that they did that were actually a crime. Okay.
Hmm.
And I cannot give that information unless it is subpoenaed by the courts.
Okay.
So we have there are limits to confidentiality.
Even if so,
So
like, let me give you an example, right?
yes,
All right, and maybe this is extreme, but I wanted to kind of see how extreme that might be, right? Like,
okay,
say a person is a mass killer, right? And
okay,
they found, the authorities have found that they have confessed to like four of those murders, right? And they
okay,
found those bodies, and because he told them where they were,
right,
but he ends up telling you, yeah, there's like 10 more.
right. So in situations like that,
Uh-huh.
we have an ethical guideline within our ethical code of a duty to warn, meaning that if we find that our client is a risk to themselves or someone else, we have a duty to warn and contact any type of criminal justice agency about the issue that's at hand.
Okay.
And
So,
actually, if you don't, that could be severe consequences for withholding information that can hinder uh, the an investigation, particularly
mhm.
when it's dealing with things of that sort at that level, and potentially harming other people. So that could be severe consequences. So we do have what is called a duty to warn for issues like that that protect us in circumstances like that.
Okay, so like for instance, well, a person who was caught with four bodies is probably never getting out of jail, right? But if that
Right.
person is in jail and now you're doing therapy for this person, right? And then they say that to you, would you still have a duty to warn because he's in jail, he's on death row or whatever, right?
Yes,
Like,
we have a duty to warn whether they're incarcerated. It doesn't matter whether
okay.
they're in a hospital because some guys, particular situations, they don't go to jail even though they're in state custody. They may send them to a long term state hospital for the
Hmm.
remainder of their lives or a certain period of time. So whether they are in a state hospital or any type of whatever they're incarcerated at, or whether they are in jail, we are required to give that information based on a duty to warn.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of
Hmm.
sense. And it's funny because in light of that, Jeffrey Dahmer was going to be sent to, when I was a kid, he was going to be sent. My dad used to work at Ancora State Hospital. He no longer works there. He don't even live in Jersey no more. So y'all can go ahead and dox the place. But either way, it's called Ancora State Hospital, and they were going to send Jeffrey Dahmer there. And my dad was working there at the time. I was like, "What? Like, y'all are
Wow.
crazy! Like, y'all better not." They ended up not doing it. They ended up sending him out somewhere else. I don't even know where they sent him, but it
Oh
wasn't anywhere
wow.
in New Jersey. And but that was crazy because that's the main state hospital in South Jersey, and then there's some other state hospitals too. But that one right there is famous. Like a lot of people know about it. So, and they were going to send him there, man. But either way, yeah, that makes a lot of
Right.
sense because I'm wondering if they found more stuff and then was like, oh no, he need to be in a full lockdown type of
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even though even a person like Jeffrey Dahmer, who um, had multiple. Matter of fact, I actually have a video on Jeffrey Dahmer that was one of my highest rated videos.
Mhm.
I created a video on Jeffrey Dahmer. I actually did a review on the Netflix series on Jeffrey Dahmer.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in college, I actually studied and did research on the whole life of Jeffrey Dahmer for almost half a semester. Um, in regards to his upbringing, things he experienced, his mental health diagnoses, things like that. And Jeffrey Dahmer is a product of a kid not getting the help that he needs, and the parents being apathetic towards what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many signs of that could have been prevented in childhood. Jeffrey Dahmer would kill animals and different things like that, which is a telltale sign of a psychopath per se.
Right.
And those things were ignored. There was a lot of things that he did that was ignored. Also because, and I don't want to get racial, but the fact being him perceived a certain way as a clean cut white
White
male,
child. Mm-hmm.
he was not seen as a threat, and there were a lot of things he did that were ignored or not necessarily paid attention to. And the reason why he got away with the things that he got, because we got to understand, Jeffrey Dahmer killed the multitude of people over years. This was not over a short period of time. This was over, um, I think it was like maybe 15, 20 years of killing people and things of that sort. Like, this was over time. It
Mm-hmm.
just so happened at the latter end, he did so many things over like the last 5 years. But Jeffrey Dahmer has engaged in all types of behavior that was overlooked by the schools, his parents, people in the community, the law enforcement. Uh, that's kind of when we look at forensic psychology, we kind of studied how within his psycho development, how Jeffrey Dahmer pretty much, due to white privilege, um, got away with a lot of things just because of that. And if he would have been held accountable, it would have saved a lot of lives. It would have
Okay.
basically saved a lot of lives. And so he was a very sick individual. He had multiple diagnoses, not just one diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, when people think like, and there are many situations in which somebody is diagnosed with multiple things, um, and we have to be careful when someone, like, even when I hear people say I've been diagnosed with, let's say, major depression, I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, or let's say I've been diagnosed with PTSD, there's a high chance that there's some other diagnoses that may not be the primary illness, it may be secondary, that
Mm-hmm.
also contribute to the dysfunctionality of that person.
That makes a
You
lot
know,
of
so,
sense.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's important. That is very comorbidity. It's called, basically, when something operates comorbidly, meaning that you have a one disorder is running in parallel to another mental health disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a large percentage of people who have anxiety that may also have depression.
Right.
So that those things do occur a lot. And then there's also those who have a behavioral disorder such as ADHD or ADD that may also have major depression, or they may also have bipolar disorder. So those things do matter, particularly when it comes in kids, as far as mood swings and things of that sort. And there's a thing such as that's called differential diagnosis. Within a differential diagnosis, what we're looking at is multiple mental health illnesses or disorders that have similar symptoms.
That's what I was about to get to.
Yeah, that
Now,
that
before you
have
before you get into that,
yeah.
though, let me just acknowledge some of the comments in the chat, because I don't want to get too behind with that. Miss Murph, I do appreciate you for being in the building, sis. Thank you for being here. Steph Collins, you said Clark, you said Steph Collins. I was thinking that as well. Hey, Brown Sugar Baby, definitely appreciate you. You said hey to Miss T. Pre and D. Durrell, and Steph says hey to Miss Murph. And hey, Steph Collins, I am human. I appreciate you being here as well. Yes, a sector build. Propane Oak Lane, appreciate you, Wolf, for being in the building. Brown Sugar, you said hello, chat. I am enjoying my weekend Miss T pre shows. And shout out to that. Lyris, appreciate that. Appreciate you. Let me just get down to these comments here. You said PPOs and HMOs. Yep. Hey, Clark, Fax D. Durrell. You said, Riz Lyricist, I have goodie insurance payments. Right. He said, good afternoon, 3SB. I'm still cleaning up this fellowship hall. The potluck after services this afternoon was something else. That's what's up. He says, Steph Collins, hello, girlfriend. I know you stay on the potato salad church broad. You said, D. Durrell, question, how did you get into that field, or what made you get into that field? Okay, we'll get to that question in just 1 second. Let me go ahead and read just a couple more comments here. You said, Clark, you can get your state insurance license. You said, Brown Sugar Lit, I'm about to gear up to move back to Boston soon. All right, let me see here. You said, I don't want to imagine how raggedy these potlucks would be without me. I appreciate all of y'all. And you're talking about HIPAA here, yes. And you said, thank you. I was thinking about what made him think about that field. I've thought about it, but sometimes I don't have a lot of patience for people. LOL. I got a lot to work on. He said, thanks, Florida is cool, but no job opportunity. If so, they at least 1 hour away. The toll is too high. He said, release.
Yeah, those tolls in Florida are high.
Yeah, they are. Just like New York. Well, they used to be. They're not as high as they used to be in New York. You said release of information or sensitive information release is required. They certify to release. You said, right. You said, Riz Lyricist, well, good luck, bro. All right, guys. And you said, that's deep. You said, good question. And then you said, Darrell, I have so many questions about your role in court-ordered therapy. I don't want to get you clipped though. I mean, yeah, that would be
fine.
good too. You could go ahead. You can hit the link. I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link for y'all too.
Yeah, I can. You can ask me whatever. I mean, this is within what I do. They can clip whatever they want, but
right.
I'm consistent.
Right. He's not gonna answer questions that he's not legally able to answer. So, right. But definitely, there's quite a bit of things that Darrell, his expertise, he actually can answer. You said about your opinions about court order therapy. Okay. You said he went to jail. You said Jeffrey went from eating people out of jail to eating. You know what? Pause.
Yeah.
You said, I don't think he had any kind of relations in jail, Riz. Unless he was used as a punk, it would have been too dangerous for the other person. Okay. You said, are you starting to see more concerned attention about being put on traumatic brain injury, Darrell? That's a good question. So let me write some of y'all questions down. So we've got the traumatic brain injury question. Injury. And also Clark had a question on how you got into the program, how you got into therapy. And then I've got a couple of questions.
Sure. Let me know which one you want me to answer first.
Okay, you can answer whichever one you'd like.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and, as far as how I got into the field, I became interested in psychology. Based on it's okay. I was basically reading books. Pretty much, growing up in a small town where there not a lot of things to do in the summertime. I spent a lot of my summers just reading a lot of books, going to the library, reading a lot of books. I came across a book that focused on therapists and social workers providing therapy for kids that were my age at that time. I was about maybe 11 or 12 years old, and they were talking about kids becoming latchkey kids and the difference between those as far as their behavior with their parents being there versus their parents not being there. And so they found out a lot of latchkey kids had a higher risk of, drug use, becoming teen. At that time, our generation, there was a lot of teen pregnancy. Particularly,
yes, definitely.
High amounts of
high amounts.
High amounts of teen pregnancy, particularly in urban and and rural areas. I mean, we had a lot of teen pregnancies in at that time. So I kind of was reading that, became interested in how the kids progressed over time. And I thought that that would be something interesting for me to want to do to try to help people in that way. And so as I became older, I read more and more books that related to psychology and some of the more popular psychotherapists and psychologists and things of that sort. And so that's how I became interested. Also, when I was in high school, um, I took the course, and also I was in competition. I actually they had something called a literary rally where they would have people within a region. We would all compete for a scholarship for that particular discipline or court or that whether you were good in mathematics, science, psychology. So I basically won that contest. Um, I won. I basically placed first in my school, and then in the regional contest, I placed, and I had the highest scores for that region. And so once I completed that, I went to Baton Rouge to compete against everybody in the state. So I did well in that one, but I didn't place in the top five, which was needed to get a scholarship in that area. So
Okay.
so I felt like if I can excel, I thought that was kind of a sign that maybe this is something that I may want to pursue in college, and that's basically what I did. I obtained a degree in psychology and then a master's degree in mental health counseling, which is a form of basically counseling psychology.
Okay, awesome. That's really great. That's really great.
Hmm.
And I hear everybody in the chat is saying awesome as well. And then there was the other question about, hold on, let me get to that question again.
Oh, is it the
Traumatic
court
brain.
order? The
Oh,
court
yeah, the
order.
court order questions too. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a good
Now,
one.
and I'm going to say this. I enjoy um, doing facilitating services for people who have court ordered services. Particularly, I've done quite a bit of different services, um, particularly for probation or parole. And um, there may be people coming in for anger management issues, which I do teach a course for that. That's not necessarily psychotherapy, but it's more psychoeducation. I've also done things as far as parenting skills, other different social skills, substance abuse classes that I've also taught uh, through through being court ordered, and also I do a lot of assessments for those who are in custody or they're on probation, and I provide an assessment to assess if this person is worthy of being released from probation, or should they continue, like say for someone that they may have completed about 50% of their probation and they're looking to get out early. They may refer me to do the assessment to see if it's appropriate for that, or if before they, let's say 2 or 3 months before they are released from probation, they also require an assessment to kind of see where that person is mentally, before they are, before they end their probationary time, as far as under state supervision. So those are pretty much the services that I do provide. Many of those people, after they complete the services, they may inquire about seeking services somewhere down the line through their own insurance, or they are paying for them by themselves. So um, the delivery of services is pretty simple. Actually, when I have different contracts, it's very, very simple. Um, Once you're in that database or whatever, they kind of refer you out to provide the service, and then once they provide the service, they give you background information on that person. I choose not to read everything in its entirety. I choose to just get the basic things about that person, because there's a such thing as transference and counter based on how the client views you and how you view the client. And I do think in many situations that I have found, particularly in some of those government agencies, I may read 10 pages of information, and then when I review this information with the client, they provide different points of view, and they give me more clarity on what occurred. And then also I found in speaking to whether it's that caseworker, probation officer, or parole officer, that there were also some deficiencies, some deficiencies in the statements that were not totally true. So by that happening a lot, I've decided to get a minimal understanding, and then I want to get the client's I want to get the client's perspective first before I read the information and gain a conclusion. So that's kind of the process. And then once that's reached, I undergo about somewhere around 2.5 hours of assessment, where you are basically analyzing the person's current mental state and then everything throughout their total life, which is called a psychosocial. In conjunction with that, I may utilize certain type of um, excuse me, certain type of behavioral, emotional, or anxiety related assessments to kind of measure where they are at this particular time. And then I come up with a recommendation, which they may or may not follow, or they may kind of adjust it to fit what they can do, or what would be appropriate for that client at that time. So usually those assessments usually is just something I may do one time per client. And then there are clients that they may want me to see for so many sessions, for so many months. There may be a client that's required to go to therapy for the next 3 months every week. And in those situations, a little different, a little bit more long term, where I'm creating treatment planning for them, uh, basically highlighting goals that are relative to preventing them from making the same mistakes that got them in trouble in the first place. So, um,
Okay.
you get people from all different types of backgrounds, all different races, backgrounds, and so on. You get people from all over. So you have to be very, very, uh, um, you know, you have to be very, very versatile in understanding the culture of and the upbringing and different things from uh, a variety of different people. Because my to say the demographic for me is pretty much um, I see basically white, black, Hispanic, and Asian. And you have a few Indians, but I got that across the board. It's pretty even across the board. Not one being, no
More
more than the others. It's pretty equal across the board.
do you see various diagnoses, like different disorders in
Hmm.
different races? Because that's pretty good that you're able to treat various races, right? So do you see more
Right.
of, like say for instance, I'm not saying that this is one of them, but do you see like more depression in black people or white people, or you know what I mean? Or do you see
Okay.
more schizophrenia? Like, is that more race related, or is that something that's across the board, or
Okay. So based on what I see, I would say when it comes to something like depression, I see it. Um, I don't see a racial difference, but I do see a gender difference. I do see more women, particularly in my practice, who suffer from depression than men. That can be greatly skewed because women are more likely to seek services, and men are more least likely to seek services, or they
Mhm.
may be more difficult to engage per se.
Okay.
But I do see that as far as depression, um, I see it pretty much equal across the board. I do see, particularly when it comes to psychosis, um, I do see that being more prominent in our demographic than other demographics as far as
Okay.
depression.
Okay.
However, I do feel that when in dealing with anxiety, I do think that anxiety to me is more prevalent among the majority culture than than other groups of people. I do see that. I deal with a lot more anxiety with the majority culture than Hispanic, Black, or Asian per se. What I will say is this: when I deal with, let's say, the Asian community or the Indian community, it's not used. Most of their issues are usually family related. It's not necessarily do or some problematic issues of them adjusting to American life, or just, it's usually an internal issue that's causing the issues, not necessarily because a person is diagnosed with something. It's usually something that's related to uh, adjusting to American culture, dealing with, let's say, certain norms of their home culture versus dealing with American culture, particularly with those that are married and they're functioning a certain way, that is um, pretty common in their home country, but in American culture may not be seen a certain way, and or let's say the expectations of the wife due to being more Americanized and understanding their rights and things like that. And I deal with that quite frequently, particularly with Indian and Arabic um, cultures, where that they have some issues as far as internally within their religion and their culture, and then they're seeing certain things that kind of, I say, cause some friction with that. Um, So those are mainly when they do come in, that those are kind of the typical issues of the family dynamic, cultural issues that and it does, let's say, um cause some level of anxiety, some level of depression. It may not be clinical depression or clinical or but it does create some level of stress
Okay.
within the family,
That's pretty
and
interesting to
so
know.
forth.
That's
Yeah.
pretty interesting to know. And that, I guess that would mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that psychosis and stuff that can't exist in those demographics,
Oh,
but
it does. I've had clients. I have clients who have psychosis throughout all races, but I do find it more prevalent in African Americans than any other group. And then also next, I would say the majority culture, the top two, white and black. Pretty much, you're going to find that. But also, I would like to also preface many of the clients, no matter what race, that have a level of psychosis, there's a history of that in their family.
hmm yeah,
That's history of mental
somebody
illness.
has it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a history of that
hmm
in many situations. And the thing about it, particularly um, for our group of people, um, I feel that a lot of people who develop psychosis suffered either some level of trauma or the lack of receiving those services, in which it may present it when they were younger as a behavioral issue, then it may have became a mood issue, and
hmm
because it was untreated, and being that it is untreated, when they become an adult, it can develop into schizophrenia. That's many situations where someone may have been diagnosed with depression, and then they end up having depression with psychotic features,
hmm
and then untreated, no medication, no anything.
hmm
And so when these things are unaddressed, it can progressively get worse and worse, and eventually develop into full blown classic schizophrenia.
Now, let me
So
ask
it
you about that, right? Because what my son is dealing with right now is this whole idea of that, right? And then also the fact that, well, what they said, there was one clinician that said this, that he had that, okay? Another set of clinicians are saying he has some other things, which I'll tell you privately what those are, okay? But it's not schizophrenia. However,
okay.
however, there were a lot of symptoms that were
That was
there
similar.
that were similar. Okay, and so
I'm gonna say this. I just listening to that. I can probably, because I've seen. Look, there's a such thing. You can be misdiagnosed.
mhm,
That is a such thing. We're not perfect. Okay,
right.
so misdiagnosis does occur. I bet I know probably two or three, because this happens very common. I'm not gonna say them, but
You can
what
put
I
it
will
in the
say is,
private chat,
okay. But what I will say is this: whatever, if the other illnesses,
and I'll confirm it if you say it.
yeah, if the other illnesses don't have anything related to psychosis in it, in conjunction to that illness, then
Mm.
that person was totally off. But if the diagnosis that the other doctors gave have something dealing with psychotic features, then he probably, based on subjectivity, was more legitimate. The diagnosis was more legitimate. But if he
Okay.
was totally off on some other stuff, then another person said something totally different, then it's probably a misdiagnosis,
Yeah, because
which
they don't
happens.
see, there's things they're not seeing, and I don't see, and I've been saying that for a long time.
Hmm.
Um,
Like,
but if you put it in the private chat, I can confirm it. But either
okay,
way, let's go on while you're doing that. But
okay.
either way, I had another question. Well, there was
Hmm.
actually another question in the chat. So let me go to that real quick. Shout out to Steph because she had a really great question. And she said,
Okay.
are you starting to see more concern or attention being put on traumatic brain injury? Like in regards to like if somebody says, they've had a traumatic brain injury, or something like that. Are you seeing more of that being saying, like maybe you can clarify what she's saying, but I think what she's trying to say is, you know, based off of seeing some things in the criminal justice system, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes they may use traumatic brain injury as the reason for why these things might be happening. Are you seeing more of yeah, so that's exactly what they were trying to say, but there's not any of the first part of it or
Oh, I
even
was
the
correct.
second. Yes,
Oh, I was. I kind of figured that.
yes.
Okay. So, mm, okay. You,
And
you
what
said
ended
the.
up happening was
Uh-huh.
he had received some medications that were just completely off. I mean, I'm telling you, there was a battery of medications, right?
Okay. Okay.
And it was crazy. And so another set of clinicians got involved, right?
Hmm.
And them getting involved, they were like, what the hell is this? Take this, take that, take this, take this.
Right. Right.
None of
So.
this is going on without
So.
this. And this was
Okay.
after um observation over an extended
Hmm.
period of time. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh,
So
okay. Okay.
they were like, no way. And now none of this is going on. So
Right.
yeah.
What I can say is this: there is a such thing as a brief psychotic disorder, which may happen short term, that may last um, anywhere between maybe 2 weeks to a few months or so. I'm not specific on it because I don't have but it's, it could be a brief psychotic episode that lasts for only so long, and that does happen. That can
Hmm.
happen, and it could have been induced by the medication. I don't know.
Exactly.
That
That's
and
exactly
so
what they said.
yeah, yeah. So that probably was what happened. And
Okay.
let me give you an example. And this is a substance abuse related. Like, say for instance, you remember when they made the synthetic marijuana, the Kush and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
Uh-huh.
There were
That
people
K-12.
being induced. There were people who were induced. I have clients that went to the hospital because it induced psychosis when they took that was I mean, I don't know what the testing on it or whatever, but there were people that I know that used that synthetic marijuana, and they went into a psychotic episode. So without the proper information and assessment based on the information that was given, the, a psychologist or a psychiatrist could conclude that they probably had some type of psychotic disorder if that information of them using Kush was not given.
Right.
That could be the case. So mistakes can happen. Misdiagnoses do occur. That could be a set of circumstances that were missed that could have caused a different diagnosis that's not necessarily the accurate diagnosis. So
Right. I got you.
so that's kind of what I'm gathering from
Because
that. But
this one is what was attempted, but that's not it. They're not saying that
right.
at all. He don't even
Okay.
have any of those features whatsoever.
Okay.
And it was like multiple battery tests that they had done.
Okay.
And
So they did. So they probably how old is your son, if you don't mind me asking?
he'll be 23 soon.
Okay. So he may have. They did a full battery test. They probably did intelligence testing on him,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably did what's called an MMPI,
I
the
don't know about
Minnesota personality, the Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory, which kind of focuses on either they did that or they implemented another assessment that may have identified a different illness based
that.
on
Right.
how he answered the questions.
All
So
right.
a full battery is the most accurate way of assessing a person. But it's very lengthy. He probably did it for like 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Very time
It was.
consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I would probably go with that result over anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go with that result because it's more in depth. You're being asked a ton of different questions in which they could catch certain dynamics and certain issues and kind of make a conclusion based on that result. So that whatever that result was, I would say would probably be the best way. That would be the best information to follow and go further.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, that's what we've
Yeah.
been doing, and he's been doing really well. So
Good.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a misdiagnosis,
Okay.
and probably because he either missed some information, overlooked the
She.
information, or they may
She.
he or she may
Mhm.
have overlooked some things, or they missed some things, or he presented a certain way short term that was not necessarily
That. Right.
a long term chronic issue.
Right.
So that's probably that's what that sounds like. But it happens. But
Okay.
the thing about it, and I do encourage, just like you went and got a second or third opinion, I encourage people, like I just stated, depending on the issues that you're dealing with, the multitude of issues, and along with the function, whether that client is, whether he or she is decompensating or not, the use of a second therapist may be appropriate.
Right. Right. And in this particular case, obviously it was right. So
Right.
yeah.
And so there are situations, say for myself, I have clients that may see me individually for individual therapy, and then they may see me separately. I mean, they may see me separately on an individual basis for personal therapy, and then they may see me together for family or marital counseling.
Mm-hmm.
So we do that. You can do that if they choose. Like if I offer referral and they say I would prefer that we want to continue to see you just on different issues, separately per se like that. Okay, I can do that. That's two different modalities. So we're going from an individual modality to a family or marriage modality. So that if they want to do that, that's up to whatever the client is comfortable with. In some situations, I do encourage, depending on certain things, that they seek those issues with another. It all depends on what the issues are, and how the relationship is, that I may encourage that or not. But that happens, and I encourage anyone to do that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having a client a therapist for substance abuse issues, and a therapist for substance abuse, and a therapist for mental health. That's perfectly fine, and it's common.
Right. Right. Okay. Another question. Stephanie Collins says, "Do you think Black men are overdiagnosed with antisocial oppositional disorders?"
Okay. So antisocial personality disorder is what she meaning that that's actually a cluster B disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder or saying oppositional disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. There's two types of. There's actually a obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's an obsessive compulsive personality disorder. You know
Okay.
that per se. So that's a cluster C uh, disorder that deals more with stress, anxiety levels within their inability to interact effectively in your social environment that causes you to somewhat um, to be more introverted per se, or you have issues interacting with others based on the fact that if something's not done a certain way, you know, it may affect how you function, whether it's at school or at home or things of that sort. So that particular disorder, I don't think that black men are overly diagnosed in it. There are some that I do think black men are. Um, I would say that black men are overly diagnosed, um, but particularly when you're looking at like ADHD, particularly, or those who have adult ADHD. I do think that many young boys or males who were diagnosed and it leads into um, adulthood. There's a lot of misdiagnoses of that. And
Yeah.
also, I'm starting to see an overdiagnosis of black men being diagnosed with autism. Um, I'm starting to see that because, and that's something that I began to notice about 10 years ago. When I was in my training to become a therapist and even studying and doing different things and getting experience, um, I had it was um, autism was not diagnosed that often
To
and
anybody.
to anybody.
Hmm.
And when it was diagnosed, it was mainly to white Americans,
Right.
white kids. And then all of a sudden, I noticed somewhere around 2010, 2012, I started seeing an increase, period, amongst kids across the board, particularly African American. It was almost a shift from ADHD to now we're going to diagnose you with autism, and I start seeing that a lot.
Well,
And
at a question that
yeah,
was there a change in the DSM and in the
yeah,
diagnosis?
there was a change,
Mhm.
but I also want to also preface the fact that within autism and even ADHD, there are environmental and medical factors that can contribute to that. Particularly,
Right.
um, lead poisoning can contribute to a mental health disorder such as ADHD. Also, other like environmental pollutions can also influence mental health as it relates to autism. And I'm gonna be honest with you. If what I'm about to say can be somewhat, it can be to the medical profession, depending on who you're talking to. Uh, they don't like to hear this, and they could be very dismissive of this.
Okay.
However, there are too many studies that can correlate immunization shots to autism.
Go,
There
speak on it. Speak on
now,
it.
I don't know if YouTube will like me saying that, and I hope the channel.
I know. Well, don't say it no more. But I heard you. I
But
heard
what
you.
I'm gonna say, but what I'm gonna say is this: I have had several clients, particularly that because a lot of kids that have autism may also have a behavioral disorder such as ADD or ADHD. Okay,
Hmm.
and that runs in conjunction and with that, right? And so when I talk to the parents during the assessment, I have heard repetitive situations of them receiving that form of preventative treatment and then they notice something wrong, and about 2 to 3 weeks later, they start noticing some changes. Now, I'm basing that on my clinical experience. There is research to substantiate that. Now,
Okay.
there are doctors. Matter of fact, I actually had and I never forget this. When I had a contract to treat kids that were mild to profound autism. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, that's some of the hardest work because a lot of those kids are nonverbal or they're very
Right.
limited verbally. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I actually treated a kid that actually was an Indian American. Both parents were doctors. Both were doctors. Okay. And I had a discussion with the mother about that, and she became very upset with me saying that. And she
Right.
dismissed it. Yes, she was. She was not happy that I talked about, did anything, because I raised the question. And the reason why I raised the question is because there were other parents that would tell me that would give me that. They were offering the information.
Well, I mean, I'll say this, right? That's like a conversation in itself in regards
Right.
to how the medical profession, how like doctors particularly, right, will react to such things because I even heard Brown Sugar, for instance, talking about this a little bit earlier about her doctor, right, and how they had given her specific natural remedies, but said make sure that you're not really talking about it too much to anybody because I can get in trouble for that, right?
Yes, you can.
Because
You can.
yeah, because in doing that, you're taking money away from. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, but not only that,
mhm.
you're going against um, the medical the model of that is it does not encourage, I would say, herbal or natural other means of treating illnesses. See, the American Medical Association has a model that is based on assessment, diagnoses, uh, surgery, per se, and also the prescription, the prescribing of medications and things of that. When you and there's a different and there's a box that's put into what that prescribing is. No doctor will prescribe you herbal medicines.
Hmm.
You understand? So that goes
I do
outside of the
understand. I just think
yeah,
that
yeah,
even with the rules, but I get it because
yeah.
I'm not going to speak on that on this panel. I think because
I get it. I
in the
get it.
field, I don't want to do
Yeah,
that. But I think
yeah,
you
I
know what
get
I'm
it,
saying,
but
right?
I do listen. I never forget. I thought we were going to be open to a discussion. She felt some kind of way about
No
it.
way. Yeah,
She totally dismissed it, and I get it
that's her
because
child. Yeah.
that's her child, and she like no, and then and I don't know, but I'm sorry though. I've seen
You said these weren't even American; these were Indian American people.
yeah, these are Indian. They both were doctors. They both the
I can
mother
imagine.
and the father were both. She actually decided to stop working so that she can take care of her son of his because of having autism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, my experience dealing with autism parents online is totally different than autism parents who have autistic kids
In person.
in real life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going like these. They almost have a cult like file. I don't know. That's it. I never forget. I created a video about a year and a half ago on autism, and I had people that I was very very cool with. I'm talking was, hey D Darrell, I've been a chat. We chopping it up. They didn't came on my panel. You didn't actually. I'm not gonna say their name, but they've been on my channel several times, and we was and doing live streams and everything. That stopped coming over because they did not want to accept that autism is a mental health condition. They didn't want to accept that. And
Wow.
they did not want to accept that. And I told them this is a DSM, and they actually thought that they can diagnose. The real issue was that I told them that you cannot and you should not diagnose or encourage someone to think that their child or someone else is autistic. Do not self-diagnose. You're not a trained clinician. But and their response was, well, I took these classes and I said, stop. And I was very professional about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were upset with me for speaking in terms of autism in the manner in which I did from a professional standpoint, and the fact that I have treated autistic people, people who have autism, whether they had a mild form, which a lot of autistic clients that have a mild form of autism, it may, depending on how they function, it may be even difficult to even know that they have autism. Okay. When we're
Right.
looking at mild, moderate, now moderate, maybe when you're looking at the profound levels and severe, profound, you can see that they can't function. You can see that they're not adapting and things of that sort, and that communication and lack thereof. You know, but there are people that have mild levels of autism you wouldn't know that they had, and I've actually had clients who worked, had families who went to school and different things, and they had a mild form of autism, and they function very well.
Right. Because I was going
So
to ask if anybody
yeah,
has ever been diagnosed as an adult with autism, or is that
no
something
part.
you see as a child?
Yeah, it's something that you're diagnosed as a child, and that was the other issue that we had when I tried to tell them in diagnosing autism. Um, I want to say the diagnoses can't be given. I think they have to be a minimum of 3 years old to maybe 12. I'm somewhere between 10 and 12, something like that. I don't have the, but it's somewhere. It's basically grade school, elementary ages, but it's somewhere between 3 and 10, something like that, where um to be diagnosed. You cannot diagnose someone um with autism at 18, 20 years old, because
Mm.
if they truly had autism, it would have been um
It would have
found
shown
out
up
by,
in school.
yeah, it should have been.
Yeah.
Now, are there is situations where people slip the cracks? Potentially, but that's highly unlikely. So I'm looking at what would be the on average per se, not necessarily the exception. You know, I mean, again, the system is not perfect, but you don't diagnose a person with autism as an adult. That's
Okay.
not following the DSM criteria.
Right. That
And
makes
when
sense.
I said that, they got upset. They felt like they can diagnose other kids. They can diagnose their own kids, and I greatly and I don't care. See, this is the other thing they gotta understand. You can call my board for whatever you want. I don't know why people think that if they don't agree with me, they think they scaring me with calling the board, because
Right.
you don't think that I understand ethics and I know what I can. And I'm like, that's why when they send these things, they disregard it, and they just notify me, and they disregard it because I know what I'm talking about. Like I am not. I will never purposely miseducate you, never, because I understand, particularly in our community, the negative perception of mental health, which actually hurts us as a people.
Yeah.
The lack of it and the lack of access about in regards to it hurts us. So I'm not going to engage in something I know can definitely hurt us as a people. No, I'm not. Part of my reason for coming on YouTube was to educate more about. I started out doing stuff about just educating people on illnesses, mental illness, and the things that I deal with on a day to day in my practice. So yeah, I had that experience with autism, but like in my normal everyday practice and treating, you don't get. They're very supportive. A lot of them are highly overwhelmed, particularly if their child is severe to profound. It can be overwhelming. It can be highly overwhelming. So I understand that. Now, the stuff that goes on the internet, it can be a whole different thing because they have people with certain all kinds of agendas. I found out that YouTube actually broke up a sector and did some stuff because some of the stuff that they were actually bullying and harassing people, and it was a certain autism group that they had on YouTube that were actually harassing and they were doing all kinds of stuff that they had to delete that. It was almost a complete sector that they got rid of.
Wow. Are you serious? I didn't know YouTube does that.
Yes. It was, I read up on, I started doing my research on it when I started learning that it totally caught me off guard when they responded to me like this. Wow. They told, and there were a couple of them that I haven't spoke to since that happened. I haven't spoken to them since. Yeah. And so when I created that video, I got a lot of comments, a lot from people that I'm talking people of all races from all over that were in the autism community on YouTube. And it was, some of the stuff was nasty. And I'm talking 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. I'm not talking about a sentence or two. I'm talking about paragraphs of stuff, not happy with what I stated and things of that sort. And I started doing my research, and that was I forgot the name of it was a YouTube community that was strictly, they talked about autism and with their children on a day-to-day basis that had autism and how the experiences they deal with school, taking their medication, other behavioral issues they may have, other healthcare issues that they may have. And they just basically were a support system, which I support. They were a support system for one another. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of groupthink in that. Mm-hmm. That if you don't agree with everything that they say, then there's an issue.
Sound like AFW to me.
Yes, and I had issues with the fact that as a professional, and you're gonna tell me that you can diagnose something I took years training, and all of a sudden you feel like you can diagnose based on you taking a few trainings and reading a couple of books. Like I took offense to that. Yeah. Now, so I voiced my opinion about it, and we had ongoing exchanges. But I did read that, yeah, that was an autism community that was doing some things, and like they basically almost broke that sector up. They deleted channels and stuff because of the complaints and stuff, and they were going harassing people and just doing all kinds of stuff. They stated, but as I read it, they had their own like mission statement and all kinds of stuff. And now they provided a lot of support to one another. But the problem is that they thought because they have a child that is autistic, they felt like a professional can't tell them anything about autism.
I see what you're saying.
And that's a problem.
That is a problem.
And many of them felt like they didn't need a professional. They are trained and can do it on their own, which is, to me, that is actually, detrimental to the child's health, long-term health, to do that. But that's what they thought. Look, that's their child. I can't tell you what to do with your own child. Now, to be honest with you, in many instances, particularly in the state of Texas, that could be deemed as medical neglect.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Isn't it times where the medical profession can actually step in if it's something that, like, even with the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? When those children weren't able to get blood transfusions, sometimes the state would step in to those situations, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Or CPS would come in and
right.
Particularly if it's something that's chronic or life threatening. Oh yeah, they would come in. And so I had to deal with that. But you did ask, I want to kind of pivot to the fact that there was changes to the autism diagnosis.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I just want to acknowledge that Stephanie's here. Hey, Steph, I appreciate you.
Hi, how you doing? How you doing? Could you hear it?
I can't.
Okay.
Oh, now I can hear you. I hear you now. Okay.
Because I can't unmute for some reason.
Okay, I can hear you.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Because it says my mic is muted at the top. Okay, I may need to get on my tablet.
Okay.
Yeah, you have like a echo.
Background.
Okay.
Close your YouTube.
Yeah, I don't have anything open, so is it better now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Well, you sound fine, but we're echoing through your.
It's weird. Okay, yeah, because I don't have anything else open. Let me get on my tablet. I'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So,
Okay. I'm sorry, you were going to. I'm sorry.
Before, I want to say 2000, maybe 2000, somewhere between 2010, 2012. I think it was the DSM-4 or DSM-4 TR, which is the treatment review booklet. They decided to take Asperger's disorder out of the DSM, because Asperger's disorder is basically an adult form of autism. The symptoms in itself run in line with just minor differences to autism. With Asperger's was more defined as far as when a person was in social situations, as far as that there were certain within their communication, you would see certain types of odd or kind of atypical facial expressions and body posture that a person with a person with Asperger's would engage in social situations.
Mm-hmm.
But they decided to take away autism. They decided to take out Asperger's disorder, and they decided to combine the two and relabel it as autism spectrum disorder. So so what they're doing is they're looking at a spectrum of autism from lower to a higher level per se, or let's say severe to mild, or profound to mild. And
Does that make sense to you medically?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Okay.
Man, that is a very, very good question.
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to, or
I can
take time to think about it. But either way, to me, it doesn't. And the reason is because it's clear at one time they were diagnosing people with Asperger's, right? And obviously there was a difference in that and autism. You know what I mean? So I can't understand how you can now combine them. Like, what happened in scientific research that made them think
what they found
were the same?
Yeah, what they found is that people who had autism, there was a certain percentage of those who had autism that developed Asperger's as adults. There's research to support that. Particularly those that maybe on the mild to moderate side, I would say, that are more higher functioning, may have had Asperger's, because Asperger's is more of a lesser form of that. And I think the research I guess they made that determination based on new research to combine it and make it autism spectrum disorder. I'm gonna say that when that first came out, there were a lot of people. That was a hot topic in the mental health field. There were a lot of people who were not happy with that. There were a lot of people who had issues with that. They did not like that the DSM decided to do that, and so on. So I have kind of mixed feelings about it per se. I kind of feel like that too. Like I didn't think that was a real need to completely take it out per se, but they've done that before. They have taken out certain illnesses.
They did I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, they did the gender identity disorder. They did that, and there's some other things that they may have taken out. But I know for that one they've done that.
So you're no one can ever be diagnosed with gender identity disorder.
No, they cannot. They now call it gender dysphoria disorder or
Dysphoria
something like that.
disorder. Okay.
Yeah, it's something like that. It's
Which is
something.
the same thing, kind of, right?
It's almost the same. They rebranded
They
it. Is really
rearranged
what
the
they did.
words. That makes sense.
And I'm gonna be honest with you now, and I hate to bring his name up because Umar did kind of bring this about. He really wasn't lying. He wasn't lying about it, but because of his, I think the reason why people kind of, the LGBT community didn't want him saying that, and he did that and said those, but I don't look. I don't know the way he explained it. He made it more of a conspiracy theory about how certain things happen with certain groups, that the politics of it kind of changed it or whatever, which could be true. But I think if Umar just would have stuck with the clinical aspects of it and not brought the governmental and aspect influences, political, people probably would have listened to it more. But he made it more of a conspiracy theory, conspiracy. So they did that. They rebranded names. I mean, bipolar was once called manic depression. They took out multiple personality disorder is now called dissociative personality disorder. And there's other different things like depersonalization disorder, like those things in which you are unaware of of what you are conscious of, being something totally different, or just unaware of your environment and where you're at the time, and thinking you're somewhere else that is not the reality of where you're at. They've made some minor changes over time, and that's going to happen. So it does happen, but that was one that sparked a lot of concern for a lot of people when they changed it to autism spectrum disorder.
Okay.
I think that I think they should have waited to get more research before doing that. And did more education prior to making that decision, instead of just bam, we basically open up the book and find it's missing, and we're like, whoa, what happened?
Sometimes I feel like also, and not to cut you off, but sometimes I feel like a lot of times they will change the wording of some of these things based off of maybe people being offended, by certain words.
Right? That's definitely
a thing.
Influences. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say that does not occur, because that there is influences of that. We have to understand.
Like.
Yeah, that can happen. There's tons of people. There's a team of people who there's a team of psychiatrists and other mental health professionals that create and review the DSM. And they review it for years before they come up with the new one. They may add like I think they're going to add something like the next DSM may have something like gaming addiction disorder or something that doesn't even exist, but that may occur that may happen in the next DSM that was not in previous DSMs. It was just more of a you just was addicted to, per se, is just an issue, a behavioral issue, but that may be added in there, So that was actually a group of Black psychologists who attempted to get racism, like I think it was called something racial disorder or something like that. They tried to get that into the DSM, and it was denied. About people, as far as people who are, let's say, racist to the point where it monopolizes their life and you're causing harm, and it's almost like an obsession with the group that you're racist towards and causing harm to them. They made an attempt to make that a mental illness, but it didn't go through. But like things like that happen. Things are proposed, and then they decide what comes and goes, per se.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Steph, can you hear us now?
Hey, is that any better?
Yeah, you're good.
You sounded fine. I just want to make sure I'm not echoing through. Yeah, you sound perfect now.
Okay, great. No echo?
No echo.
Great. Cool. Actually, that's funny that I just came in on talking about adding racism to the DSM because I've actually thought that before, looking at some of the people I grew up with and some people that I've known throughout being a white person in the racist South. Like, there's something wrong with your mind, because it is just sort of a illogical thing that they can't seem to, no evidence can convince them otherwise. And so I've often thought, that maybe it is some sort of like, maybe not that it's a chemical issue, but that it's just becomes something so ingrained over time. It's something like an obsession almost. But of course, I'm not a professional, but this is what it looks like to me sometimes.
The problem that they will have with that is that racism is something that is programmed and socialized. It's not necessarily something that's you ingrained hereditary wise or biologically wise per se. And I think that may be, to me, if they are going to add that, they're going to have to make it some type of stress related or impulse related disorder. Something like, as far as the impulse of some type of stimuli of seeing another person and that triggering a certain emotion, certain thought process, and the fact that you're reacting in certain offensive manner, violently or what have you. That's the issue. That I think that's the way that it could potentially. If you try to make it a personality disorder, it's not going to pass as a personality disorder. It's not going to pass as some type of mood or anxiety related disorder. I don't see it being because of that type of syndrome itself. As a family, it has certain things that I think, as far as with racism, like you can't teach a person to be depressed. You can't teach a person to be, to have anxiety. You know what I'm saying? So racism is something you teach and you mold and you can be socialized that way. So that's the difficulty of it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I don't say that to make an excuse. It's just there are people I've encountered and lived with that they are so resistant to any kind of contrary, any evidence whatsoever, that you just start thinking maybe there's something structurally wrong there. That it's like, what?
Right.
Why? That just kind of it just seems like they just have some sort of wall up, but it is socialized, of course. So I guess see what you're saying. Yeah. But I guess I had asked some questions in the chat, and I wanted to sort of clarify to see if maybe we can have a bigger conversation, because I think I'm really interested in your work as someone who does court referred or justice referred therapy for clients involved in the system. Because I work in the system myself, but it's my clients are the ones that are defending a criminal case and are part of their plea negotiations or somehow trying to resolve it. They either are mandated or they voluntarily choose to get some kind of therapy, anger management classes or BIP or something like that. And I often wonder, as a professional, as someone who works in both sides, where people seek it out voluntarily and where people are court ordered or court referred, what do you think? Is there problems that might be going on with people who really need, like, longer term, but they're only getting it through court referrals? Do you feel like that could be possibly detrimental to, how do I say this? With people who are maybe not familiar with their circumstances of life, their culture, do you feel like they might be getting labeled as part of that court referred therapy?
They're being labeled?
Or like they're it's somehow it's possibly doing more damage than are there certain detrimental effects that it might be having?
Okay. Now I'm gonna say this. When it comes, I'm like, say for instance, and this is something that I may get say for instance, there may be a person that committed a domestic violence situation, right? And part of their probation is to get anger management classes. Okay. or let's just say that they just wanted them to do psychotherapy. That's a mandated issue. I think that the issue is in regards to if a person, let's say it was a person who they said committed a violent crime, but they didn't commit the violent crime per se. they really didn't, but because they are even though it happened, they're basically wanting them to do it anyway per se. I think that in itself could in many ways, I'm not going to say hurt the person who's getting the therapy, because it couldn't hurt, but I do think it does give them a negative type of mindset towards the system that they're interacting with. And so what I'm saying is that, let's say there's a person who's innocent, right? But the court is looking at that, even though we don't know if you're innocent or not, but we're going to mandate while this is going on, or just so that you can present your case better of innocence, you need to go and do these classes or engage in therapy. For a person like that, they are going to be very conflictual and very oppositional, because they're in the mindset, I'm doing this for, they're not necessarily doing it for therapeutic purposes. So I can see them not getting the benefit of it because they don't want to do it, because they don't feel they did anything wrong and they don't need it. So they're like basically forced to do it. So in that whole interaction with the lawyer or whomever, they can have a certain type of presentation, because they feel that this is not, I'm just doing this just to meet what the needs of what the state wants me to do. So I don't know necessarily it caused harm to them per se, but I do think that it's not benefiting them, to the fact that just the fact of doing it is somewhat a kind of a unwanted and uncomfortable situation that they're just trying to hurry up and just get it out the way and just move forward per se. They're looking at it as a waste of time. And I've had situations like that where a person, look, I didn't do this, I didn't, and they were found innocent, but because of the situation, they felt like they had to do. And to be honest with you, I actually hate situations like that, because a resistant client, for that reason, is just not going to open themselves up and be willing to, improve from therapy. They're just going to basically give a minimal effort per se, and so I would rather not deal with that, to be honest, but it does happen. I'm not going to say it causes harm, but what I can say is that it does kind of affect how they interact with those that are in the system and the therapists or whatever that basically are mandating them to get those services.
Yeah, I think that was kind of, maybe I think you did a lot better at saying what I was trying to say. That I think
Sure.
like here in Travis County, we're a very touchy-feely, like everybody needs help type of county. And so, I've heard judges say, like, what's wrong? Like, everybody could benefit from BIB. I'm like, well, I don't think that's accurate.
I'm gonna disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think that everybody can deal. This is the thing. I want to preface this point. When we talk about everybody can benefit from therapy, see, there's two type of clients. There are clients who, no, I'm gonna say it's like three different types. There are clients who have bona fide mental illness, which a lot of people think that those are the only people that need counseling. That's not true. Those are people who can't function. Then there are people with mental illness or no illness that just have problems coping with short-term issues, such as, let me give you an example, dealing with a divorce, dealing with grieving over the loss of a loved one. That can cause short-term or even long-term, depending on, because, particularly with grieving, that can be, you can't put a timestamp on that per se, depending on how you're coping. They don't necessarily have a mental illness, but there are certain situations that the implementation of therapy can help you heal, help you grieve, and help you function better to the point where you at before this situation happened. Okay, and then you have a situation where a person, let's say they're doing it for growth, they're doing it for personal growth and preventive reasons. For example, premarital therapy is preventive. It's for preventive purposes to understand where you are before you go into the marriage. Okay, or let's just say, and this is something that I have a lot of clients that do this. They go to therapy for periodically. It could be 2 to 3 times a year, just as a mental health checkup. Just like you have a healthcare checkup, they have a mental health checkup. We kind of summarize and review and assess what's been going on the last 3, 4, 5 months, where they are, how they've been functioning, and I give my clinical impression of that. We go through therapy for that day, and then if I feel that there's a need for other therapy, they'll come back. If not, then they may not set up another therapy session till 3, 4, 5 months down the line. So they do it for preventative or growth purposes, whatever. It's not a continuum of going to therapy, every other week or bi-weekly or every so many weeks, because there's certain goals they're trying to achieve. So I think that everybody can benefit from therapy just on a personal growth perspective, just being better at communication, better at managing family issues or family stressors, things of that sort, minor things that a lot of times things become overwhelmed because it starts off little and it builds up over time. Okay, and then if you don't have the necessary tools to deal with small things, they can grow to more severe issues. So that's clinically speaking, that's how I view it. I know people say that, I mean, everybody can benefit from therapy, but I think it's about the level of therapy and the purpose of it. That's kind of how I look at it.
And
Okay.
I guess, yeah. I'm sorry, T3, I didn't mean to interrupt,
Oh,
but
no,
I
you're
do
fine. Go ahead.
have a
We're gonna
follow-up
wrap it
question
up
about
soon,
that.
though. But go ahead.
So I guess I don't know, since you've been a provider for these, and I only know I'm the person who's being told I have to send my clients to these, so I don't know what's going on in them. I just know my clients have to go. I know my clients are being sent to these programs because they've quote unquote, they've broken the law allegedly, they've hurt somebody allegedly,
Right.
and so I don't know if but I know I'm seeing my client up close, and I know that he's got anger management issues because he moved twice a year every year he was in high school.
Right.
He saw violence in front of his face growing up. Right now he's trying to raise 3 kids, and he just got out of jail. His mother died while he was in jail. There's a lot of legitimate reasons he's angry, right?
Right.
But like the system is just saying like, well, we don't. And in the courtroom, I'm dealing with people who are like, well, we don't care why your client's angry. We just know he is. And so I don't know, when he goes to the anger management class, and it's in a group setting, I would imagine, is it ever acknowledged that these people, quote unquote, the defendants, my clients, is it ever acknowledged that, like, while they're alleged to have done something that hurts somebody, they're people who have legitimate reasons to be angry, and maybe they're just dealing with it wrong. I just feel like,
and that is a reason to be in therapy.
okay, sure,
I was gonna say, like,
that is a reason, a legitimate reason to be in therapy, so that you can learn how to manage those emotions and to think in a perspective that will allow you to function and problem solve and correct the issues that as far as how you perceive your family, your past events, heal from the fact that you had to move and this person and that, all these things that have happened. The purpose of therapy is to help you learn how to function and correct those situations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, just the mere fact of anger alone is not the problem. That's the
Right.
fact that these other situations and the trauma that he experienced is the
Right.
problem. That's not
Right.
being addressed. That's what
So
needs to be
anger is
addressed.
like a symptom of
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just a symptom
Mhm.
of his experience.
Mhm.
Right. And I just know that I'm dealing with, like, you know, the you know, victims advocates who are just looking at my guy like, yeah, he's the scum of the earth. And I'm just thinking, like, there's reasons this is happening. Like, he's just a human, you know, he's a person.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I'm looking at it from my side of it, and I know because I actually I do work. You know, I don't. I used to consult and do testimony and stuff. I don't do that anymore. But as far as being a an expert witness and things like that, I've done that on and off. I stopped doing it years ago, but from my perspective in dealing with, because I had two law firms that I used to work with to do things with, and I dealt a lot with like stuff with child custody and divorces and stuff like that, assessing, whomever to see if they're
Yeah.
appropriate to have the child. In doing that on my side of it, I know they're looking at him as a criminal, and the fact that he when he was angry, he did these things. The anger needs to be addressed, but the anger is really not the main issue. The anger
Right.
is just the overt behavior that we observe based on the fact that he has these other psychological distressors that trigger that. Anger is the only way he know how to express himself, or it's the easiest way to deal with it.
It's easy, right?
Yeah, so I would suggest is that as far as to me, he needs more than anger management. I would suggest therapy in conjunction with the
Okay.
anger management would be more appropriate if you want him to truly be better long term.
Right.
I think that the therapeutic anger management is only going to deal with it's a curriculum that is only limited to how that curriculum is constructed, and it's going to strictly deal with anger. It's not going to deal with like the issues that he has over time are not going to necessarily be addressed in totality. Only from a surface level.
Yeah.
So that's I would propose that per se, from my opinion as a clinician. But I mean I get it. I know I've been in courts and I've seen how things are done as far as them requesting and the judge mandating that people do certain classes and do all these different things. I get that, and pretty much it's up to the judge.
Right.
Really, that's really who makes that decision. So yeah.
I've actually got two final questions. I'd like us to kind of wrap up the show. We've been here almost 3 hours, but I really appreciate you, D. You have done a tremendous job in like answering questions and thank you so much for just gracing the panel. You as well, Stephanie. I appreciate you as well. But did you have any final questions, Stephanie, before I ask my last two questions?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate, Darrell, you telling me, giving me some education about how that is going on, because I don't see the inside of those doors. And, I'm just worried that, when my client goes to those things, it's just being drilled into his head that, he's a lost cause. And so I really appreciate you kind of clarifying that stuff and letting me know that, it can be beneficial, and that, things about him as a person are being addressed to a certain extent.
Right.
Yeah, and I really
advice. Yeah, that was great information.
Yeah.
And also I do want to say that I really appreciate that you are right. Like, the only therapists and the only people who provide these things that I see in a courtroom are typically white women. So I really appreciate that you've given that you've made this your life's work, because I think it's really needed. So thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your questions.
Cool. Thanks, T-Free.
No problem, Steph. Thanks for coming up on the panel. I appreciate you being here. And yeah, those were great questions too. I have one other question about. Well, I have two questions, but the
Hmm.
one of the questions is about healthy eating, right? Do you
Right.
find that now we were talking a little bit about, the immunity word, right?
Immunization.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
word, right?
Okay.
I was
Good.
trying to
That.
not
Yeah.
say the full word, but you
Okay.
know what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about that in regards to that's its possible connection to some things, right? But
Right.
what about food and diet, right? Are those things
Yes.
like a lot of
Yes.
these fast foods and stuff like that, some of these Takis and stuff, is this stuff connected to some of these health disorders, like mental health disorders?
Yes. Yes. It
Okay.
is.
Well, can
And
you do a
and
presentation on that one day?
yeah, I can talk about healthy eating as it relates to mental illness. Matter of fact,
Mhm.
I want to make people aware that, particularly in kids who have behavioral disorders, one of the key things as far as that we look at is kids not eating sweets, things that are high in sugar,
Mhm.
trigger these behavioral, the hyperactivity and things of that sort. We want to reduce that. Also, we look at the fact that there is some research that supports, um, you know, the unhealthy foods that we eat, as far as fast foods and so forth, that actually contribute to obesity and so forth, having some correlation to depression.
Mhm.
And there are health in the DSM. There are alcohol related, substance abuse related factors, and there's also food related or environmental related factors that can contribute to mental illness. So there is diet. A healthy diet does affect your mental health.
Okay.
From a,
That
so
is
that
really
that
good to know.
yeah. So I can
And
I can kind of talk about
I would love
um
for you to talk
the,
about that and even give some suggestions. We were kind of waiting on Outlaw. Outlaws is I know he has to cook sometimes for the kids and stuff like that. So
okay.
he actually did come into the chat, but he was going to get into that as well, and also into mental health and some foods and stuff like that, and some
Yeah,
very
yeah, he
healthy
does a
food.
lot of
Yeah, he
nutrition.
does a lot of that.
Yeah, he does a
So
lot of nutritional stuff, and he's more on a holistic model per
right,
se, as
right.
far as the treating the whole body as it relates to mental illness. And when he's been on my panel, because I've seen him on and off for years, he'll talk about different herbs and different foods and things that that can affect mental illness and awareness and
Mhm.
mental processing. There are benefits to that. There is research to back that up. So that is something particularly that can improve your mental health as far as your diet. And I can definitely talk about foods that we eat as a community. And I'm gonna just be honest with you. There's a
Yes.
lot of stuff that we eat as a community that is has a negative effect. We still carry on, a long time tradition of eating a certain way,
Right, right.
that's been passed on from one
For
generation. And I
years.
know it tastes good, but it does have negative effects. And I do think that um, there are certain vegetables and things, particularly vegetables, that do have a lot of properties that's in line to help boost mental health function.
Okay, well, I would love to hear you talk about that and give us your expertise on that. I'm looking for.
Okay.
I've already looked over Outlaw stuff. A lot of things that he talks about. I've gotten a couple of books, and I've been looking into that. I've been into that kind of stuff for a while anyway.
Right.
Just juicing and even using different ingredients in quote unquote soul food, right? Like stuff that
Right.
we might look at as soul food, but you kind of change out certain ingredients and different things, and you still got that flavor, but you don't have
Yeah.
all
The
the
seasoning of it can
right,
really be the
right,
difference.
right.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
there's like a lot of things, even like as far as mac and cheese, like the kind of cheese you can use, the kind of milk you can use doesn't have to be, cow's milk and cheese, right? There's
Right.
different other things you can use, and you can still get mac and cheese and some good mac and cheese.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So yeah. Health. The way you eat does have an effect on mental health. It can have an effect, and there's studies to back that up. Some
yeah.
foods, do certain things, and they target certain areas of the brain and things of that sort. So, yeah, there's definitely a correlation with that.
Okay. Well, my final question. Okay. And
Okay.
do you have any final thoughts or anything before I ask this final question?
Other than that, I just wanted to say I actually enjoyed this. This is actually
This is great.
I like doing these type of interviews and things because
Okay.
this kind of runs in line with what was my original purpose on being on YouTube, was
Right.
to do stuff like this. And it kind of went other ways, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I do appreciate that you asked me some questions that actually I haven't even thought about in a while, but it kind of sparked me to kind of think about this and that. So that it was very stimulating for me because it kind of had my brain thinking about some things that I had not thought about in a while. So I do
awesome.
appreciate that.
That's
appreciate
awesome.
that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
No worries at all. Steph says it seems like a lack of economic and social resources a young child experiences may make a huge difference in proper mental development, environmental toxins, nutrition, housing stability, etc. Yeah, I think a lot of all of that all together is kind of like a summary of what could be causing some of these problems,
Right. It does.
And perhaps with proper education of the future generations, right, of these things, when combined with, holistic as well as medical, right? If you combine both, eventually, we'll be in another place with our kids, with our families, mentally and emotionally. There's a lot of things that are no longer hidden either, right? Like such as
Right.
S abuse and stuff like that were
Right.
things that were swept under the rug a lot more in the past than they are now, right? There's a lot more
Correct.
stricter laws in place and stuff like that are keeping these things from happening. And so
Definitely.
that is also making a difference in people's mental health and things of that nature as well. And my final question for you would be, because this is something that may happen with just casually, right? And as a mental health specialist, I'm pretty sure that it may rub you the wrong way when you hear people use certain words, against each other, even if we're roasting one another or whatever, right? That are mental health diagnoses, right?
Right.
How serious is that?
Well, I had a therapist that calls me a conversational narcissist.
I don't even know what that is, but
Exactly. I didn't know either. I'm like, wait a minute.
But when I looked up narcissist, right, I saw that it was literally under the definition of narcissistic personality disorder. And in order to come to the conclusion that a person has such an issue, whether you take off personality disorder or not, and you just call it narcissist, you'd have to have certain, there's certain things that you'd have to fall under, right, in order to, and you'd have to go through a series of testing with this person in clinical studies. Am I wrong, or because I'm not a clinician?
You can do it like the full battery of testing that can identify the features or factors that can contribute to narcissism. Basically, literally speaking, conversational is really a more of a, I'm going to say, a pop
culture,
kind of a pop culture term per se, because it's not in the DSM.
Okay.
So now what happens is that the professional, the person that wrote that, was basing it on how a narcissist, a true person that has narcissistic personality disorder, they conversate in that way, per se. Okay, but truly a person but you don't necessarily have to have NPD to kind of to communicate that way,
right?
Because basically speaking, a conversational narcissist doesn't necessarily meet the criteria for NPD per se in itself. But the fact of the matter is that when people say the term when they say the term narcissist, someone is narcissistic,
Or
it's
they have
overly,
or they go to even as far as saying they have narcissistic traits.
yes. Now, narcissistic traits is one thing because there are 9 different traits. You can have 1 or 2, but see, the criteria is that you have to have 5 of them, 5 of these 9 that run concurrently with each other
Right.
in order to do that.
Concurrent.
You have to possess at
But
least
you wouldn't
5
be
at
able
one
to know
time,
that unless you're like clinically
being tested
interviewed.
and being assessed. Not
Right.
see the problem with the fact that people use this, that they are basically, number one, when they say someone is acting like a narcissist, is usually in a conflictual situation that the
Right.
outcome is not what they want it to be. So it's coming from a place of conflict, not just pure objective understanding of their behavior. They're mad because the person did something usually that was selfish. But everybody has done something selfish.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that just means that if you did whatever and you did something that was selfish or more self-involved and absorbed within yourself, or let's say you're not necessarily caring about the whereabouts or the feelings of somebody else. I mean, I think everybody in some point in their life been guilty of a situation that somebody felt that way about you. It doesn't mean that you're a narcissist. And the fact of the matter is that the troublesome thing is that there are all types of little terms that people use, and this can change in 5 years. There's so many things that can change. Somebody made a little cute term that people just stuck on to, and then in 10 years, nobody's using that term and somebody's using something else. I'm
Right.
about using what industry standard, okay?
Yeah.
Nobody says conversational narcissist in any professional setting that I've ever been in my life.
Like,
and I was surprised that she stated that. And I think
like
she
technically
Yeah.
you can call a child, like a 4-year-old, a conversational narcissist, right?
and they
Because
just learn how to talk. So
right,
this
like
is
they're gonna
crazy.
keep talking and they're gonna overtalk you every time, and they're gonna make sure the conversation is completely about them. Okay.
Like it has to be in the context of a person. Like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. When she said that, I just laughed. I was just like, and then I also, like, I'm gonna just say this. I definitely wasn't expecting of all people from that to come from her, of all people. We have a certain, because we are, we have a certain, regardless of us not agreeing on something, we have a certain standard of interacting with one another that I felt like, okay, now you just all over the place. So I just let that be. But
yeah, I'm just teasing her a little
there's
bit.
always cute little terms. Listen, there are always.
I love Samba. I love her.
Yeah,
I was just teasing her a little bit.
It caught me out. I didn't take it serious. I just laughed. But there are all these little terms that people come up with that can be that they come and go. There's all these little pop. Matter of fact, me and this other therapist that I know in another sector, she was just talking about how people read these magazines, like certain type of mental health magazines that have all kinds of little things that people may write, and they create these books. They write books, and they create these terms to write the books, and then people hold on to those terms and stuff, and then it gets kind of rotated around where everybody's using certain little terminology, and like people are like, say for instance, projection. Mm-hmm. That's an overused term. Per se. Now,
is it? Tell me
yes,
why.
Projection is a little bit overused, even though I have seen it.
There's a lot of projection.
But projection is nowhere near what narcissism is. Now, I've seen people use it correctly, but it's nowhere near as bad as narcissism. It ain't even, to me, narcissism is the most overly used term on YouTube or social media, period. And also, what's the other? Oh, the term for narcissism, people who claim that they're borderline personality disorder, what else? And autism. Things I've seen. Matter of fact, I just read an article about, particularly on, they actually use TikTok as the basis. They pointed out how a lot of these content creators are going on YouTube claiming that they're autistic, and things of that sort, that based on them reading the information and books about it and the DSM. And there's a lot of people on you that they felt that was a problem, that of people going on claiming that they have all these mental health issues and they're not being they're self-diagnosing themselves and they're not seeing a therapist or a mental health professional. And what happens is that they pointed out situations in which they were glad that they were interested in trying to find out if they have issues, and they were surprised that when they went to a professional, they told them they didn't have what they thought they had. They had something else, per se.
Oh, wow. How about
So the field is in the perspective of, we don't want to discourage you from reading up and educating yourself on mental illness. We just don't want you to act like you're a professional and go online and say these.
Right.
Yeah, they don't want you doing that. And so they were looking at it like, if this person never would have sought the information, they probably would have never went to therapy. So even though we like the fact that you did feed your curiosity, we just don't want you acting and saying this stuff and being misleading to people to think that you can just read something and say, oh, I have, I'm borderline person. It says this, and I experienced this, and I'm antisocial, this and that, and that's what. Yeah.
Right, because various symptoms of different things might, actually manifest from different.
Yeah, disorders. They may be similar. Like
right.
To be honest with you, a lot of people, and I've actually said this, and I actually plan to do a video on this. There's another illness called histrionic personality disorder that has a lot of the same. Actually, they're all in the same cluster, the cluster B disorders, but histrionic personality disorder has some of the same self-absorbed qualities of narcissism. A lot. And I guarantee you, if I read the features of histrionic and I said, you see these narcissistic traits, and I guarantee you, people read that would say, yeah, that's narcissistic. And I'm gonna say, and then I'm gonna correct it and say, actually, it's not. This is actually history, and I will explain to them why it's a difference and why it's not. But
is it like gender based, or is it what would be the?
Well, it's not gender based, but the majority of people who are diagnosed with histrionic personality, research wise, is mostly diagnosed with women,
right,
for that particular disorder. But it's there are men who are it's mostly women. The issue with histrionic that makes it differ from narcissism is that, see, people think that narcissism is a symptom of narcissism is that a person who thinks they have heightened self-importance, they're trying to put down everybody and minimize everybody else for themselves and try to necessarily, demean people or force people to look at them as being the point of attention. That's actually not a narcissistic trait. That's actually a trait of histrionic personality disorder, because that's the major thing that a person who's histrionic wants to be the center of attention for everything, and they will do and say things to sabotage other people to make them seem less important and less capable.
Okay.
But people think that is not narcissism. A narcissist is not actively trying to. A narcissist just is basically trying to convince you that they're greater than what they really are.
Right. They don't care about what you think of other people.
Yeah. So like the narcissist wants you to believe, even though they may be making $30,000 and whatever, they want you to believe they making $3 million and got this and got that. And I seen this person, and it's more of a lie per se about who you are in a feeling of yourself, an inflated, exaggerated feeling of themselves. They actually get off on you believing and convincing you that they are this person. It's not about trying to put you down and demean you to make me feel higher as a person. That's a difference. But people online, I see this all the time. well, he told me this and made me feel this way, and I felt, whatever. And he's a narcissist, and I'm like, that is not narcissism. The even though they both are selfish, self-absorbed, it's the way they behave and interact to other people and showing those symptoms. That's a bit of a difference. And so I plan to do a video to compare and contrast, because a lot of times what people are talking about is not narcissism. It's actually it's really not the full blown diagnosis itself. It's actually symptomatic of histrionic personality disorder. That's really what it is. And another thing is this, and I'm just gonna say this, and I know you're ready to go, but
you're good. Go ahead.
I've only had in my whole career probably 3 clients that were narcissistic personalities, that were narcissistic.
I remember you saying that on a video before, and that was profound. When you said that, that was very profound to me.
I only had about 3, and each one of them that I had one that was both of them were in hospitals that got referred to me. One of them was actually at a community mental health center that I worked at before I actually went into private practice.
Okay.
And I think as far as histrionic personality, the same. I may have had maybe, I'm gonna say 2. I know I remember one that I had, but I may have had 2. Like these illnesses are not as common. Now, the ones that are common, antisocial personality is common. Borderline personality disorder is very common. Obsessive compulsive personality is common. Paranoid personality disorder, schizoid. Well, those are little, but actually Jeffrey Dahmer had schizoid personality. That was one of his diagnoses. But paranoid personality disorder is a little bit more. There are tons that are way more common than narcissism. True narcissism, like I'm just saying, because there are a lot of borderline. I've had tons. I probably had maybe 15 or more people who were diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. At least, it's far more common per se. So I'm just saying, like, this stuff where everybody think they know what it is. I just listen. I'm at the point now. I don't say anything about it anymore, because I've tried to correct people, and people don't want to listen, and people want to believe what they want, and people think I don't know what I'm talking about, and then later on they find out I do know what I'm talking about. So I'm done fighting those battles. Like I'm done. Like in other spaces, they hate when you do that. I'm actually going to say this sector is way more receptive of me talking about mental illness and stuff than other sectors. Way more.
That's a good question that Steph just asked, though. Like, I know we're trying to get out of here, but this is such a great conversation, and I really do appreciate this conversation. She said, are men found to express histrionic personality disorder, given the word hysteria is based on the Greek word of uterus, which is true, because if you have like a hysterectomy, that is the medical word for uterus.
Right.
So, I wonder if there is any connection with that, and why they usually diagnose women with hysteria.
This is why I think they diagnose women more than men. Is because one of the traits of histrionic personality disorder is that they have an exaggerated display of emotion towards the minor things. Just a minor thing. A person that's histrionic can take a minor situation and overly exaggerate it to make it and blow it way out of proportion. That I think men may display that a little different than women. Are more, the observation of it is more glaring for women, and they have a tendency to display that a lot at a higher level than men. Therefore, that it's probably looked at a little bit more as far as, and that's why I think women are diagnosed more, is because there's a sense of how they display emotions about things as far as, like I said, exaggerating, being overly dramatic about things that affect them and things like that, that men kind of can be more reserved or try to, I would say, minimize their emotion. And I think that has something to do with why it's diagnosed more to
women.
to women than men, because of that display of certain things as far as emotionally, that people with histrionic personality disorder, that they may exhibit, that men for on average probably would be, because men don't like, on average, men are not comfortable with showing their emotion for the most part. Most men like to compress or minimize their emotions, as opposed to this illness itself. It there's a major aspect of it where they're just, they just acting like the world is about to end because something didn't go their way, per se.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would act out and do a lot of attention seeking stuff, to get what they want, per se. So that is what I think contributes to histrionic personality disorder being overwhelmingly diagnosed to women.
I got you. I understand.
Yeah.
Well, this
but yeah,
was
you gave me ideas for content, so that was
I'm
good.
so excited about that.
I'm gonna definitely work on that this week.
Okay.
And I'm gonna definitely work on the nutritional aspects of mental health, of healing your mental health, and I'm definitely gonna do a compare and contrast of histrionic personality and narcissistic personality disorder, which is, they're in the same cluster B family. That so there is similarities, per se. Right. So that happens, and also there's certain things about narcissism that are also in line with antisocial personality too.
Okay.
A few there are some similarities. Yeah, there are some, and see, basically, antisocial personality disorder is basically people who commit crimes, or they don't want to follow any form of rules or organization. They have, they disregard life, they disregard anything or whatever, hurting others, hurting themselves, whatever they got to do to get what they want at all means, and the deceitfulness. And this is basically seen, given to people who are more in line to being criminals or going through the criminal justice system, per se. But see, there's also people who grew up in criminal environments that this is all they know, that have the same mindset.
Do they still call it a disorder that way?
Yeah, they still call it a disorder that way, because in a personality disorder can be developed through social programming. Mm-hmm. Not just the environmental means of where you're at, but it's also socially. Like like saying, teaching somebody to steal, you can teach somebody to kill, you can teach somebody to you can actually teach those things. You can. So the thing about it is that when it becomes so repetitive that it just becomes who that person is, and that's why you cannot diagnose a person according to the DSM criteria until you're 18 years and older.
Okay.
That's why.
It does.
That's why.
And it really probably should be older. Like it probably should be like 21 or something, because they're still not even fully developed at 18. But I guess because that's the legal age, right?
Well, actually, this is another thing. That there's a misconception about that. Now, yes, you are right. Basically, the human brain is not fully developed until 25.
25, yeah.
I think 25. I think it's 23 or 24.
Isn't it different for women?
Huh?
Isn't it? Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, but no, that's no significant. There may be a slight, but it's not a significant difference. It's like a lot of the stuff that happens. There are minor differences, but not significant. But the difference is that at the age of 18, the development of the brain is adequate enough to know to function as a human being. You know,
Yeah.
you basically are developed at about 90+%, maybe 95, 97%. You know,
Okay.
of your brain development is at 18. The other few years may be about 3 to 4%, give or take. So yeah, it's not fully developed, but it's not at a point where, you know, the light bulb just comes on once the brain is fully developed. You know, and that's the reason why there's a difference between how adolescents think and how they process and make decisions. And the maturity of is a maturity level that happens that happens when you're 23, 24, 25, that does not occur when you're 14, 15, 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so parts of the brain when you're dealing with problem solving, rationality, things of that sort, that's the difference. Those things and judgment, those things are more developed in the latter years in your early 20s, as opposed to you being 16, 17, or even 18 at a certain point. You know, so that's, you know, yeah, I get it. That is true, but it's not as significant as it sounds, you know, but because basically you're looking at 90, 95% or plus is there. So that doesn't mean that you don't know right from wrong. It doesn't mean that you can't make decisions. You can't process things, because you're able to do all of that. It's just that, you know, it's basically fully matured in your early to mid 20s. That's the difference. But I get it. I mean, it's accurate in the basis of how it's stated, but there's a little bit of nuance as far as, you know, as far as that age and things of that, you know, as far as what you can do at 18 and what, you know, what you may not be incapable or developed enough to do, you know, and so on. So that's, you know, as far as clinically speaking, that's the difference.
Okay. Stephanie
Yeah.
says, do you think women less likely to be considered to express antisocial personality disorder because of the gender bias favoring women? Like they would be thought to be borderline instead of antisocial.
Okay, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Again, borderline personality disorder is still another one that there's an exertion of certain emotions and attention-seeking behaviors that antisocial doesn't. Antisocial personality is not necessarily a illness that is displayed in the form of emotional irregularity. It's more about the decisions and judgment and your ability to be, you know, other people to be safe around you. Because a person that's antisocial, true antisocials are a risk to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
per se. You know, so the reason why women are less likely to be diagnosed with antisocial, because women are less likely to commit violent crimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. Women are by nature far less violent than men. Women are less likely to try to impose their physical will. This is why men commit way more crimes, because men by nature, because of our size and genetics and how we process that, you know, we're more prone to committing crimes. You know, and so that's the reason why I think because of men and our nature, an unbalanced man is more prone to do those things, you know, and be of a risk to society. And so a person see, the thing about it is within antisocial personality disorder, there's a lack, basically it's apathy towards everything except for themselves. They don't care. When I talk about apathy, you don't care about your own parents, sister, brother, father. You don't care about anything. You are the focal point of everything, and nobody else really matters except for me, except for the I person, you as an individual. And a lot of people who are antisocial have that mindset. I just read a study that less than 25% of people who are incarcerated have antisocial person. So it's like it's not a small percentage, but it's a high enough percentage that it's in its 20s. But so that's basically 1 in 4. may have
Right.
antisocial personality disorder. So
Okay.
yeah, that's
Oh,
well, but the thing about it is, the issue with that is that when you talk about mental illness and incarceration,
mhm.
when you look at the people who actually have other illnesses, then you're looking at about 60 to 70% that have some form of mental illness in
Wow.
jail. That's the real issue about. See, jail is nothing more to me in many instances, but just more of a more brutal form of mental health hospitalization.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Because
Especially
most
our
of these,
forms of jail.
yeah. So it's basically another way to house people who have mental illness that committed violent crimes.
And that is actually a thing in other countries, like Greenland, for instance. Their prison system is more or less of a mental health facility. Like it's
Yeah.
actually like they get really good meals and like they're rehabilitated in that motherfucker.
Right.
Like they literally tried. Like honestly, a lot of these places they commit crime on purpose because they don't have anywhere else to go, and they go there because they are going to be well cared for.
Right.
There's no bars on the windows or none of that stuff.
Right.
They just walking around like, and these are like people that did big things, like committed real crimes, but
Right.
they're still in there and they're not. It's not the same as it is in America. So
Right.
that's definitely a thing. But then there's other places where prisons are even worse than American
Oh yeah,
prisons.
they horrible. They deploy, and my thing is, my position is, um, you know, I feel like the issue with, particularly with the criminal justice system, is that it's privatized.
Yeah, that's
And
the
if
problem with American
yes,
our American justice
if you
system.
take the
Everybody's making a bet.
privatization, I guarantee you take the privatization from that, I
There ain't gonna
guarantee
be
you
no
that
prison jail,
they're going to take away some of the RICO laws and
all that
and
stuff.
the minimal time given per se, and all of that stuff. That stuff is going to go away because they can't. There's no
There'll be
form
no
of
need for
profit.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So, and the government is going to be like, we're not going to be spending all this money. We're
You're
going to
not making
reduce.
money. Yeah,
We're going to reduce some sentences. We're going to do this and do that. And so that's
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 another
the issue.
conversation we can have though.
Yeah.
But we'll have
So
another conversation on that another day
yeah.
about
So
prison
yeah.
system.
So that's the issue. But I would say 50 to 60%, they have some form of mental illness.
That is wild. That is like
A lot.
beyond.
And that's why
yeah.
and that's why they're in jail, because a lot of them didn't get the help or didn't have the access to help.
Yeah.
To be
Let
honest,
me get the
to me,
outlaws.
the most
Oh, no, go ahead.
healthiest. Okay,
No, go ahead.
I said, to me, from my experience, the most mentally healthy criminals that I seen were drug dealers.
Oh, wow.
I'm being honest. The most
about that?
mentally,
Yeah.
they mainly, these were perfectly fine people
Perfectly sane. Yeah.
that just was doing this just to get money.
Right.
And that's it. They had no. Some of these people were good in school. They had this and that. It was basically about greed, getting money, and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with emotional issues. And I
Right.
did this because I ain't. No, it was because I wanted to make money, and I wanted to have this. I wanted to have that. I wanted to hit the women. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make a lot of money, and it was about money. It was, that's what I've seen. Like. That that's what I've seen. To me, these guys, to me, they really not like what I call, like just their processing of thought doesn't allow them to know what's right or wrong. So they just doing stuff out of anger, doing stuff out of fear. It was just the fact that I'm doing this because I'm trying to make a living. I'm trying to live at this level. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Outlaw,
what's happening, man?
Hey, what's going on?
I was trying to
Peace,
get to
everybody.
your comments here.
How you doing?
Good. I was just gonna expand on a couple things you mentioned, D. But Dr. Stephanie Seneff, you probably never heard of her. I don't know how much YouTube has pulled her
I
talks
have heard of
down.
Dr. Stephanie Seneff. I've heard of her.
MIT trained. She's got the real research all about those shots, and especially something called glyphosate. which is a key ingredient, which is causing the havoc amongst, especially our people. William Tucker, CDC doctor, he was the one who petitioned Andrew Wakefield and Del Bigtree. I don't know if you know who these people are, to do a Freedom of Information Act, because he had the data to show MMR was creating a lot of issues with autism.
Right.
I met the dad a couple weeks ago because I live in Texas at an event for Children's Health Defense Fund, so people could look into that. But anyway, I just want to give people a nice little tidbit, and I'll take a picture of this as well on my wall. But Richard Hansler, his name is Richard Hansler. He has a bunch of books on melatonin. He's a PhD. He's got all of the scientific, or everything that you need. One of my favorite books of his, I'm going through three of them. He has one on C19, on how you can use it, and it's in literature, medical literature, but melatonin for people with brain injuries. And if you're talking about mental health, I find with the people I work with, melatonin is amazing. It's just that people don't know how to use it. A low dose is what people need, a little bit during the day and a little bit at night, and you can get tremendous gains. Like I'll take a picture of the books and people will get to see, to substantiate. I'm not even going to go into the various things that I could say about it. People need to be willing if they're sincere. If you want to take the bull by the horns, his books are cheap, like the melatonin and the brain injury book. It actually, I used it to train myself because I'm about to work with boxers, and I'm gonna have every boxer on that. All high schools should have all of their players on it because of the micro tears from all the head hits. So anyone who's ever had a brain injury, you would want to do a low dose therapy of that based on what he cites in his book as per the research. This is not just his opinion. So I just wanted to share that tidbit. I think people are missing out. It's amazing. Cited for cancers, for blood pressure, for heart health. I got my mom on it. She's loving it. My uncle loving it. He's off his blood pressure meds. There's answers. Just the simplest way I try to explain to people, the money is when you're sick. They can't make money off you if you're healthy. They can't make money off you if you're dead. But they can make tons of money off you by keeping the issue going. So
Right.
Right. We were
That's
talking
crazy
about that
though, but
earlier
that's
on
the
the panel.
system we in, you know.
yeah, it's anti-human. Here in that book, Medical Apartheid, that used to be my avatar. Go on YouTube. You can listen to the audiobook for free. Our people were the first herbalists. See, because of how much we've been deculturalized, we truly, it's in their own literature. We were the ones. They would try their pharmaceuticals, which is backed by what is called the standard of care. Their insurance companies will co-sign. They would try the stuff on the masters, like the ladies explained in the book. He would continue to be sick. She'd continue to be sick, and there was always amongst our people someone who knew what herbs and whatever have you that you could use for blood sugar, blood pressure. They would then bring him in and have him get the master cleaned up. But they saw him or her, who was ever out in the field, was already using this amongst our people to keep us ticking along. And then begrudgingly, after their stuff didn't work, their poisons, then they bring us in. But lo and behold, we are under such mind control, we march in the street and ask for health care from these people. Think
Huh.
about that.
About that.
We should have catastrophic care. Everybody should have that. Iatrogenic disease, you can look this up. They claim it's the number three killer. I would say it's number one, and that's from all of the medical treatments that people get. So medical, because they don't count medical error, but they count the drugs, people taking them as prescribed, how much is killing people, the side effects when they mess up in surgery. They claim it's number three, but obviously, for me, I would say it's probably number one. If you knew something was the number three killer, would you march in the street and want access to that? Iatrogenic, that's what it's. You can look it up. It's called iatrogenic disease. I'm a post. I'm a repost the video I got from like 2015. There's a lady named Dr. Carolyn Dean. She has a book called Death by Modern Medicine, and she walks you through all of the different ways people are dying. People, we spend the most per capita on
Outlaw's
healthcare.
channel. I'm sorry. Can
We,
one of the mods put a link to Outlaw's channel in the comments? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
we spend the most per capita in our GDP for healthcare costs, but that's the number one thing that you don't see the return based on how much we spend. We're the sickest. You could look at other countries that spend a fifth of what America spends, and they're less sick, and it's because of the modalities. It's the modalities. People who lean more towards like the Eastern philosophies, those people are far healthier. Our system shines. If you break your leg, if you got a stab wound, a gun wound, man, we got the very best trauma care on the planet. Here, they can save your life. I mean, they can do amazing things. But for blood pressure
Thank you,
issues,
Stephanie.
mental health issues, all of that stuff, they are scamming us. Scamming us.
No doubt. I definitely would love to have more of a conversation about that. I actually got to go, guys. We've been on for 3.5 hours. So
Yes,
this has
ma'am.
been an excellent, excellent show. I truly appreciate both of you's input on this. And it was exactly what I imagined it to be. So I definitely appreciate all of you guys for your input and everybody that was in the clouds, as well as everybody that was in the chat. Steph Collins, I appreciate you for coming on the panel as well. And I am Human First, and everybody else that was in the chat. Riz Lyricist, Clark. Who else did I have? I had a lot of people in here much earlier in the show. Speak Easy, Brown Sugar Baby, many people. But it is Sunday, and I know a lot of people are spending time with their families. Miss Murph, and everybody else that came in. So I appreciate all of you for coming in the building today. Glow was here. Make sure that you guys do hit the like button on the way out. And guys, we are going to. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys give your final words. Pixie, I appreciate you as well. Let me live in life, and everybody else that came in. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and give your final thoughts, and then we're going to end the show.
Okay. Well, again, once again, I had a fabulous time. The time went by pretty fast to me.
It did.
I guess the
Yeah.
whole flow. I enjoyed the questions, and like I said, it was very stimulating to me because it made me think about some things that I haven't even been thinking about in a long time about certain things as far as delivery of services, certain illnesses, and changes in the DSM and things like that. And I'm looking forward to getting my information set up. I'm probably going to produce those videos probably somewhere between Wednesday and Friday, or maybe Saturday of next week. Probably the next couple of days I'll start getting some things together, and I look forward to presenting it and seeing what the reaction is. I'm going to post it on my Life Solutions channel, but I'm gonna probably do a live on this channel too, since we basically had this discussion in the sector. So I'll definitely present it so that everybody can look at it. So thank you so much. I had a wonderful time. Appreciate it.
I had a great time as well. Thank you so much, D. Go ahead, Outlaw. Did you have any final words or anything?
Yeah, thanks for having me on first and foremost. Wish I could have jumped on earlier.
No
To answer
problem. No problem. We'll do
Stephanie's
it again.
question, to clarify, no, that is false. The issue is people are using high doses of it. That's why I'm
Okay.
encouraging people to look at this book. A low dose works wonders. Children don't need it historically because children produce enough melatonin. But for the athletes, if you have a child who's playing sports where they take head hits, that's when then they would need to possibly supplement. But no, it is not an issue. There's a lot of crappy stuff there, and I would give one more resource. His products are great, but too expensive. But if you want the science, John Lawrence, The Miracle of Melatonin. That's all you got to type into the search bar. He has several radio interviews. He has a book with like over 100 citations. You could just listen to a few of his interviews and get the gist. But I just wanted to answer that. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for coming on the show. And guys, I really appreciate everybody for coming into the show today. Make sure that you do all hit the like button on the way out. And we are going to go ahead and end the show here, guys. And definitely appreciate you all for tuning in. You guys were absolutely wonderful in the comment section. And I definitely appreciate you guys for being here today. So again, make sure that you guys do hit the like button. And for the next time, until next time, I will appreciate you guys. And peace, guys. Thank you all for watching.